It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We're going to kick things off with a visit with my son, Salt Hank. His new book is coming out. And speaking of new books, we also have Parmi Olson on. She is the author of a brand new book about AI. Fascinating, called Supremacy. Denise Howell, my internet attorney, joins us. And from Windows Central, Daniel Rubino. Lots of AI talk, but lots of other stories too. Twit is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 999, recorded Sunday, September 29th, 2024. Bananas and browsers. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we get together with some of the best names in the tech journalism business, talk about the week's tech news. I'm going to break format a little bit briefly here because I'm a proud papa. And my son's new cookbook is coming out on Tuesday. And I thought I'd get Salt Hank on just to talk a little bit about Salt Hank, about the cookbook, give him a little bit of a plug. And then we'll get to our panel. We've got a great panel for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to somebody I know pretty well. Longtime member of the family. Since he was born, I've known this guy. My son, Henry Laporte, better known as Salt Hank.
What's going on?
The author of a brand new cookbook, which comes out Tuesday from Simon & Schuster.
Yeah.
Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation.
Got it right here.
Oh, look at this. Look at there he is, stuffing his mouth.
Kind of a disgusting cover photo.
It's more than a cookbook, though. Flip through it a little bit because it's really a picture book. I mean, this you put this on your coffee table.
Is bonkers.
My God. What is that, poutine?
Crazy. This is like basically animal fries. It's recreated animal fries from In-N-Out, but we had to call them feral fries for copyright and for reasons. But they are like just very gourmet versions of animal fries. That's one of the, honestly, my favorite things.
Somebody's asking, Keith in our Discord, don't parents just teach their kids how to cook so they can get them to make lunch for them? I want to tell you something. I have never had anything Hank has made.
That's not completely true, I don't think.
I've had your French fries, which are a miracle. You cook them like 3 times.
Well, it depends what kind of French fries you're making. If you're doing shoestrings, cook them once. If you're doing like the Michelin star fries where you boil them, take them out, fry them, take them out, and fry them again, that's the 3-time cook thing.
Henry's on his houseboat where he does his Salt Hank studio. It's actually called the Salt Lovers Club. We should get that straight, the Salt Lovers Club.
Well, that's just the salt company, so that's a little bit separate. That's we sell seasonings and pickles and stuff like that. And that's the name of it. Yeah, Salt Lovers Club. And we have a big neon sign above kind of where I cook.
Yeah, like when I see you cooking on the Insta,
right,
you're there in front of your sign that says the Salt Lovers Club right there, like that.
Well, that's just to promote the heck out of the salt company. But right now, I'm like not.
But isn't the salt company really just like a sideline for Salt Hank?
What do you mean? Like a side hustle, side business?
Side hustle?
Well, right
like
now,
Mr. Beast's burgers and
yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, if you want to be like, if you want to start a product, that's kind of a way into like the longevity of the influencer world a little bit, and then you can, make cool stuff like pickles. I
can't wait. And by the way,
really pumped to send you some of these pickles. They're
disclaimer:
incredible.
I am an investor in the pickle.
That's true. Yeah,
business.
You have to like legally just make people aware of that.
I think I have to. I think FTC regulations say that if I'm going to promote something that I have a financial stake in.
An investor in all this. You gave me my first camera. So technically you basically like own a chunk of this entire business.
Well, when do I get paid off? Owning a chunk means mainly I gave you cameras. You were into drones. You have drones.
Yeah,
I wanted to support you in this stuff. And little did I know, but when you were a kid, all you ever did is watch those extreme food videos on YouTube.
Yeah, really good food porn. Maddie Matheson, my boy, my
Maddie,
dog.
who loves you now, by the way. Isn't that cool that you've become friends with Maddie Madison?
That part's pretty wild. I don't know if he knows how crazy it is for me when he like calls me. I'm like, dude, you're my hero.
You were on his show just a week or so ago. He woke you up.
Yeah, it was literally, I was laying in bed right there, completely asleep. He's like, hey, what's up? You're on the show. Like, what's going on? Describe what you're doing right now.
And then he's like cursing you out for these steak sandwiches, and yet he's making it, and it's incredible.
Well, he thought it was I don't know what he was doing. He was like, Hank got famous for this one sandwich.
It's not true. It's not true. You're famous for many things.
Whatever he wants. He's the king. He's kind of the godfather of like food content and food media as far as the internet goes. So he's got carte blanche access to say whatever he wants about anybody. And
he's a sweetheart. But honestly, there he is. By the way, there you are with Maddie Madison eating something.
I had to breakfast burrito. Benny to like get him to come do a video with us.
Look at that! Dipped in queso. Oh,
yeah, made a bunch of queso. Huge.
Maddie's doing the cooking. I recognize those tats.
I literally didn't cook much at all during this video. I was just filming them like kind of go crazy. I made the hash brown patties and the little latke things that we chopped up and put in the burrito. But other than that, Maddie was just going nuts in the kitchen.
If you like food porn, because this is what Henry grew up on, is food porn. Follow Salt Hank on Instagram, salt_Hank.
Thank you, Dad.
Yes, and the cookbook. Get the cookbook because the cookbook is out Tuesday, and you can get 40% off at Target right now. You get 40% off on Walmart.
Yeah.
What's the sweepstakes? I can't do sweepstakes. That's illegal, so I won't. You could buy salt from the Salt Lovers Club. Illegal?
What are you looking at right now?
I'm looking at your salthank.comey.io.
Oh, yeah. This is like the Linktree thing. Yeah, it's got all. There's
got everything. You can buy the signed copies. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Look at that.
And a crap load of them. But 40% off at Walmart, Target, and Amazon right now.
Wait a minute. How many did you sign? How many did you sign?
Like 2,500 or something.
Oh, my God. Your hand must be killing you.
No, it taught me how to. I didn't have a signature before, and I did enough.
Now you do.
Once I got to 500, I was like, okay, here it is.
October 2nd, Salt Hank will be at the Barnes & Noble in Mira Mesa, San Diego, California. Cooking, or do you just do you do a reading from your book?
No, I wanted to do pop-ups. I thought that would have been like so cool to like do. If you buy a book, you get a free sandwich, and just make a bunch of sandwiches in all these cities. But we're just going to be in like Barnes and Nobles, kind of doing little chats with people from those cities.
It's funny to do a reading from a cookbook.
No,
and then you take the onions and you slice them.
It's not that.
He will also be in Los Angeles on the 3rd at Diesel Brentwood. Owen Hahn, his sandwich buddy, will join him. Mm-hmm. San Francisco Book Passage up our way on the 5th.
That'll be fun.
We love Book Passage. That's one of the best bookstores in the world. In Chicago at Anderson's in North Central College on October 7th. And in Brooklyn, October 8th, Powerhouse Arena.
Brooklyn's a big one. If anyone knows Wishbone Kitchen or Olivia Teed, they're giant. They're going to be co-hosting with me for that one. So if you're fans of them, you should come out to that. It's going to be sweet.
And the book comes out Tuesday. You can pre-order now, 40% off at Walmart. If you go to Hank's Instagram page, you will see that. I didn't really get to interview you. We're going to do the regular show now, Hank. Do
your thing. I don't want to
come back Wednesday on Twig because I know Paris and Jeff want to hang, and I will interview then and find out how you got into this.
Well, Wednesday is the first book tour stuff.
Do it from the hotel. It's okay.
It's possible. I'll let you know.
2 p.m. Pacific.
I got to check in with
my own son. Won't even come on my show.
No, I would love to. Of course. You're the one kicking me off right now, Dad.
Book him. He's such a star.
This is the first day of the book tour, but I absolutely will.
That's okay, Henry. I'm very proud of you. You've done good, son.
Okay, thank you guys. Sorry for interrupting. I love you. Anybody that's listening.
Take care. All right, don't forget. Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation. He did not pay me for this ad, by the way. I just, I just thought, hey, it's my son. I could do that. You could do that when Isla writes her first book. Parmi Olsen is here from her daughter's bedroom. I love it. Thank Isla for letting you use her bedroom tonight.
She's going to be so pleased to have had a shout out on This Week in Tech.
No, she's not. No, she's going to go, oh, God, I'm
She
so
will
embarrassed.
in a few years when she starts listening to this.
That's right. That's right. Parmi's the author of a technology columnist at Bloomberg. She's written for The Journal and many other places, but she's got a brand new book. By the way, I love the cover of Napoleon. And then it says Supremacy, AI, ChatGPT, and the Race That Will Change the World. And it is a fascinating look at Sam Altman at OpenAI there's so much politics. The history is incredible. And your timing is pretty good because Sam's back in the news. We'll talk about that in just a second, Parmi. Thanks for staying up late with us. I appreciate it. Also here from editor-in-chief from Windows Central Magazine, our Windows guru, Daniel Rubino. Always good to have you on, Daniel. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. There's a little news, a little Windows news, a little Microsoft news we can talk about. Just a little bit. Also here, Denise Howell, who is my online attorney, host of two podcasts at HearsayCulture.com, one of which I was on not so long ago. It was a lot of fun. Hi, Denise.
Hi, it was a lot of fun.
Good to see you.
Happy 999th episode of Twit.
Did you see that?
I did.
Terrifying. We are going to do a 1,000. I feel it's too self-congratulatory to celebrate all that. But people have insisted, so we're going to get some of the old timers on the show next week to people who are on the original Twit, 999 episodes ago. 1,000 is next week. But this is a pretty good one. This is a 999 is a pretty good one.
I feel like this is the bottles of beer on the wall one.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God we're not doing it backwards. I'm not sure. Had I known when I started that we would be doing 1,000 of these, I might not have signed up for that. I don't know. It's been pretty amazing. You know what's been amazing is watching, because that's 20 years. And 20 years in technology years is like 100 years. I mean, it's watching things happen like crazy. And the biggest, of course, change has come right at the end, which is the advent of chat bots, of AI, of deep fakes, of AI imagery. Parmi, I'm really glad we could get you on because Sam has just written an AI manifesto that I think is quite interesting. The book Supremacy starts with Sam Altman, his youth, he was a very smart, precocious kid, and always kind of bossy, it sounds like. Always a leader. You tell one anecdote in here of him at in his high school getting all the water polo guys up and having them stripped down to their Speedos, which he got in trouble for, but then he kind of talked his way out of, I guess.
He was very good at talking his way out of trouble.
Still is he not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You also talk about Sir Demis Hassibis, who is DeepMind now. But that's one of the things I got from the book is everybody's moved around a lot, right? AI is a very incestuous business. It almost feels like there really are only, in fact, somebody's told me that there are only 5 kind of seminal papers that were the foundation for everything we're seeing today. In LLMs.
One of them probably being the Transformer paper.
Yes.
Attention is all you need. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. So the point of that was that there aren't any secrets. There's no secret sauce, despite what some of these guys would pretend.
Yeah.
Do you think Sam Altman has the secret sauce that his next big thing is, they talk about reasoning in he didn't call it a manifesto, but I think it is the intelligence age that he wrote. He says in next couple of decades, we'll be able to do things that would have seemed like magic to our grandparents. A little shout out to Arthur C. Clarke. But I think he makes an interesting point because we benefit from society. Society makes us smarter and more capable. The infrastructure makes us smarter and more capable than any individual. He says, in an important sense, society itself is a form of advanced intelligence. He also talks about how AI is going to take us to that next level. AI will give people tools to solve hard problems and help us add new struts to the scaffolding of human progress that we couldn't have figured out on our own. Parmi, from what you've written and from what you've studied of all this, is this, as some say, just nonsense or does it make sense?
I think yes and no. I think his pitch around using AI to benefit humanity and sort of lift us out of improve the wealth of everyone on Earth. Sam often uses the word abundance, and from the beginning he has said that if he can build artificial general intelligence, that he will help elevate the wealth of billions of people. So there's this incredibly grand, almost galactic in scope ambitions for what this technology could bring. And it's interesting that he posted this last week, not too long ago, just before a number of his executives left the company, just as he's also trying to raise as much as $6.5 billion for the company. And I think what this all kind of says to me is that selling AI, you have to sell the future. And that's kind of what he's doing. He's selling this future of AI benefiting humanity. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is when ChatGPT came out, I was awestruck by it. I thought it was amazing. But I think a lot of people didn't know the story behind the scenes was that Sam and this other guy, the founder of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, ChatGPT had kind of come as a result of their rivalry to build artificial general intelligence. But they had both started out with these incredibly altruistic goals of, Demis wanted to cure cancer and solve climate change, and Sam wanted to make everybody in the world more wealthy. But what ended up happening along the way, which is what you've probably seen over 999 episodes, Leo, of doing this, is mission drift, right? In Silicon Valley, these tech companies will often say they're trying to make the world a better place. HBO's Silicon Valley, very famously, the TV series, made a wonderful scene making fun of that, of tech startups wanting to all pitching their startups as making the world a better place. And it's an incredibly successful selling point. And you can see Sam doing this yet again in this blog post, just reinforcing this notion that he uses the word prosperity this time, that AGI will bring prosperity. But what I wanted to point out in the book is that what we've really seen is a kind of greater control taken of this technology by the world's largest tech companies. And the main stories I really wanted to point out is that both Sam and Demis tried to protect their technology from the control of these companies. That's why Sam started as a nonprofit. And there's a lot in the book about how DeepMind tried to break away from Google and become a nonprofit because the founders were concerned about where AI would be steered when it was controlled by these large companies with a growth objective and profit objective. So yeah, to answer your question, good and bad stuff, of course, but there's always going to be a price to pay. Every tech revolution has come with a price, whether it was the internet, mobile, social media especially, and I think we're definitely going to see some kind of human price come with generative AI as well.
It's interesting because this is he's right on the cusp of turning openAI into two companies, a nonprofit and a for-profit, right? And that was one of the reasons he got fired briefly because it wasn't clear what was going on. And in fact, Meena Murati, who took over as interim CEO when Altman was on the outs for about 3 seconds, just left the company along with many of the other top leadership. What's going on there? Is that a lack of confidence in OpenAI's mission? Is it that they don't want to work for a for-profit company? Do you have any insight into that?
I think it's probably a mixture of a few things. So what I heard from speaking to people who were on the OpenAI board was that Mira was not comfortable with Sam's leadership. Neither was Ilya Sutskever, who also left. He was the chief scientist.
He's disappeared almost. Yeah.
He's made his own startup, which is worth raised a ton of money, called Super Safe Intelligence, and
it's in the name. It's in the name.
And the joke is that maybe Mira should make another startup called Super Extra Safe Intelligence.
Super safe.
Because it's the insinuation, of course, is that OpenAI is not actually making safe AI, or they don't trust Sam to do it. And as we know, that when he was fired, the quote that came out from the board was that he was not consistently candid, i.e., he was not telling the truth. He was he was lying, he was being manipulative. And there was this.
We never got the receipts on that. Like, well, about what? They never. They were very cagey, and they still are about all this.
Yeah, and they haven't been able to really give clear examples that I think. But I think.
Yeah.
I think that's partly due to NDAs and things that they signed that
obviously
that stopped them from doing that. And then what's interesting is that when after that, Mira actually sent a note to the OpenAI staff saying, kind of dismissing all of that and denying that there was any kind of big rift with Sam. But how true is that? It's actually very hard to trust some of the public statements from these people. But the fact that there are so many have left means in a way that Sam can sort of run OpenAI now as his show. So he can mold it how he wants.
There is a difference between him and Demise, which is that he is not really a scientist or a technologist. He is a startup guy. He's a money-raising machine. Demise is a technologist, right?
He was formerly a neuroscientist. He wrote a PhD on memory, a very well-received PhD. He was a former game designer as well. As a former chess champion, he is a brain. He is just like, if you think of him as the brain, and he tried to build artificial intelligence and model it on the human brain. That's why he studied it. He's just been obsessed with AI his whole life. And he's a very different kind of character, but also very sort of charming and captivating, and has this kind of cult-like devotion among his staff in much the same way that Sam Altman did for OpenAI. And Demis was the first entrepreneur to try and start a company to try and build AGI. He did that 5 years before Sam did. And then when Sam started OpenAI with DeepMind, and then when Sam did, Demis, it turned into this really kind of bitter rivalry between the two.
The fight seems to be, and you include Anthropic in this, it seems to be over safety. And it's interesting, the title of your book, Supremacy, is kind of intriguing. Is a superintelligence safe, I guess, is the thing people debate. And clearly, Ilya Sutskever, Demis, the Anthropic folks, all are worried that a superintelligence will be threatening to our existence, an existential threat to humankind. Sam does not seem to think that, or does he?
Well, he talks about it, and he's talked about it to the Senate, and he's kind of made
lip service to it.
Yes,
It also feels like he's the guy who said $7 trillion, with a T, and we're going to have intelligence, and let's go full speed ahead. OpenAI seems to kind of act like, well, we're just going to ingest everything and worry about it later, and let's go full speed ahead and not worry so much about safety.
Yeah,
is that not right?
I think, yeah, I think right now Sam's big thing is just it's like he's trying to do so many things. I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago and speaking to a venture capitalist who was going to have dinner with Sam, and I said, if you could give him any advice, what would it be? And he said, I'm going to advise him he needs to just pick one thing and stick with it because he's doing too many things, or pick two things. If you want to do the chip thing, do the $7 trillion chip thing, but just do that and then one other thing, and that's it. And the other thing has to be ChatGPT because they're just doing he's got the WorldCoin, Iris, and that is Sam Altman. And it's also Elon Musk, and it's also other, Jack Dorsey ran two companies at the same time. It's like these tech billionaires. You're not really a true tech leader unless you're like juggling 3 or 4 different companies, it seems. But in Sam's case, it seems like he may have spread himself a little bit too thin. Because things are really looking out of control at OpenAI.
Daniel, I want to include you in this because, of course, Microsoft is a big partner with OpenAI, and Microsoft is probably the way most people encounter it with Microsoft's CoPilot. And they've actually changed the rules on recall. They're about to push it out, though, aren't they?
Yeah, next month, October, insiders will be getting it. I think this is a great example of how Microsoft sometimes just makes really boneheaded decisions. I'm referring to the initial rollout of recall where they didn't take security as seriously as they probably should. So now they've gone back to the drawing board, and it's the way, I don't want to give them like a lot of credit here. It's like the way it's going to come out is the way it always should have come out, right? So the difference now is
an opt-in thing, and you can turn it off. You can uninstall it now, right?
Yep. Yep.
The
you can do all
the
those
whole reason
things.
security experts are worried is because, for those who don't remember, who don't recall, the idea was it was going to do screenshots periodically, like every 30 seconds of what's going on, and then use AI to ingest it, understand it, which was interesting. In fact, a variety of AIs, depending on what the screenshot was of, and then for you to be able to query it. Microsoft said, but don't worry, it'll never leave your computer. Only you will have access to it. But security experts said that's just too valuable a treasure trove. Everything you've done on the computer, bad guys will go after it, and it really is going to be a problem.
All the information was stored unencrypted, and
that's right. Initially, it wasn't file.
Yeah.
It wasn't BitLocker. It was open.
No.
It was plain text.
Anyone with top level access could technically go through another user's files. So there's all sorts of questions coming up. Yeah, there's all sorts of questions coming up, even about like with parents and children who like children may be going, especially with the trans stuff, right? And whether or not they're exploring different ideas, and could parents get access to that, and it can endanger people. So now it's going to be all encrypted and a VBS enclave. Obviously, still never leaves the device. You need to use Windows Hello visual facial recognition to set it up in the first place, or fingerprints. From there on, though, you can use a PIN if you want. So it's going to have all the right security stuff in place. I still think it's an excellent tool. I think people who I get the concern over the privacy and stuff. Like, for instance, right now, it will also automatically filter out credit card information, ID, license numbers, passport information. Like it'll block that stuff automatically. So no one, even if someone did get access to it, that stuff would be blocked. I get the safety concerns over this. And of course, it should be an open discussion and they should be as transparent as possible. But at the same time, it's like when people kind of freak out about this stuff, I'm like, well, what do you think AI is going to do? Like the whole point of making these tools is to make our lives easier, to augment the human brain, basically. And this is just one specific use case of it. But in order for AI to be successful, it is all about, at some level, surrendering information about yourself. You can't have a personal assistant that knows nothing about you. It's like hiring a personal assistant in real life and, not telling them anything about what your likes are. Like, how are they supposed to do their job? Now, of course, a lot of people may not want that experience, and that's totally fine and understandable too, in which case, you don't need to opt in. If you did opt in and you don't like it, you can delete all the info, you can uninstall the entire program. So I think all these options are good. But I think this is, what we want with AI, at least some of us. Otherwise, I don't know what we're talking about, right? Are we just talking about image generators and making silly videos on, social networks?
Well, even image generators have to ingest huge amounts of images, right? And artists don't like that. AI is nothing unless it ingests all the content we can give it, whether it's our stuff or somebody else's. Denise, do you use a chatbot or any of the AI tools?
I tinker. Like, I don't use it as a productivity tool in my daily workflow, really.
We were talking before the show about, and Jarvis has demonstrated this on Twig, about Notebook LM, which is Google's RAG-based AI bot, which RAG is retrieval augmented generation, where it takes documents, you provide it, and then you can query it about those documents. It's kind of what Recall would also be. And Jeff took a bunch of his writings, put it in there, and it generated a podcast with a male and female host who paused and they sounded totally like podcasters, talking about what Jeff's writings said. I said, Jeff, is it accurate? He said, yeah, it's pretty accurate. It's actually would be one way you could understand what I'm writing about if you prefer that.
It sounds like a cool parlor trick, but is that super useful? If you're looking for one particular piece of information, you don't want to have to listen to two people doing a podcast.
Well, wait a minute. Shh, don't say that. Don't ever say that. Well,
I think it's an interesting example, though, because like right now, what we're seeing a lot of is like, I know Microsoft had this a few years ago, which was it would summarize your emails, but it would not even summarize. It would just kind of read you your emails, which itself can be kind of boring. But if you can add a narration to it, tell it as a story kind of thing, when you throw your headphones on and you're commuting in the morning, that's kind of the point of this. You're trying to
and Apple has promised with Apple
time.
Intelligence to do that if it ever comes out next year.
Yeah.
I guess that's something people would like. You use two words that I've always thought kind of described AI, which is parlor trick, Denise. It often feels like, especially with the chatbots, it's just a trick. It's just showing something. It doesn't seem that useful. Having, Scarlett Johansson's voice. By the way, I just got the new Meta voices, and one of them definitely sounds like Scarlett Johansson. So I don't think Meta has made a deal with ScarJo, but they have made deals with a lot of famous voices. Like I think they just announced Judi Dench, and
Judi Dench is on there.
Yeah, and Sana stuff.
That's a big get.
It's an expensive get, but so this ties into the event this week, the Meta Connect event that Mark Zuckerberg came on, talked about what they're doing. He calls Llama, their large language model, open source AI. I don't think that's actually an accurate way to describe it, but it is more open in the sense that you can use it, right? You can download it. In fact, you can download the models and run them locally. Do you talk about, in the book, I don't think you talk much about Meta and their AI efforts.
I don't. I think that would probably require like a couple of chapters. But because the whole open source effort in AI is so interesting.
What is open source when it comes to AI? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, it means that you don't have to. It's in the same way that open source software works although, as you said, like, is it actually open source? I think one of the main open source associations actually said that Llama is not strictly open source. And so the phrase that people are using is open
of open source anyway.
Yeah, apparently the most accurate way to describe it is open weights. But it's just so I suppose for a lot of
the weights are that they're using.
Mm-hmm. And it's a cheaper way for businesses to use generative AI rather than have to pay a ton of money for API access to OpenAI's latest GPT model, or Gemini from Google, or even Anthropic's Claude. You don't have to, it's just a much cheaper option.
Right.
And that you've got similar efforts coming from France, from Mistral. There's a lot, if you go to Hugging Face, that's like a real hub for all the different open source models that are currently available.
Yeah. And I've played with, there are a number of tools you can download, like Ollama and anything.ai, that you can download models from Hugging Face or other sources and try them. And, no model is perfect. All the models are good at some things and not good at other things. It's funny because Mira Murati was one of the people who was on stage sitting there with ChatGPT 4.0. She must have liked OpenAI at that time. I don't know what. That was only a couple of months ago. This stuff is moving so darn fast. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading your book, Parmi. And can you give us a preview, because we've touched on sort of the hand-wringing of the former board members at OpenAI saying we're not being super safe enough, and what dangers we know are there, what guardrails legitimate companies are going to put on their products. But then there's the dark web, and there's open source,
and there's
or whatever.
China.
Yeah,
and there's Russia. I know.
There's going to be so much out there that is so evil and so good at, say, here's an analogy. We're going to talk probably later on this show about DoNotPay and its founder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Josh,
that's right up your alley. He just got smacked by
right.
the FTC.
And some of these early folks in the legal space, like Josh, there's another guy named Andrew Aruda, whose latest product is going to go through judicial opinions and try and profile judges, give lawyers intelligence about judges' tendencies. And, people are constantly trying to read the tea leaves as to their judges. And AI could help you do that if you put in everything you know about this person and every legal decision they've ever written or made. You could probably gain some insights.
Sure.
If you fed an AI with information that was strictly like grooming techniques for underage minors to be put into terrible illegal situations, you could probably really fine-tune things to be very effective. And,
You just came up with, see, I've always wondered what's AI safety mean. By the way, breaking news, this just happened as we begin the show. Gavin Newsom has vetoed the AI safety bill in California.
That was going to happen.
Even Nancy Pelosi was saying, "Oh, you can't say yes to this." But this was an AI safe. This was an attempt to make AI safer. Why was it always going to happen, Parmi?
Oh, sorry. When I took a trip to Silicon Valley and talked to a lot of people in the industry there on the policy side, they said they hate it. They not only that, but also they believe that it's politically damaging for Newsom if he signed it, for his potential chances if he ever wants to run for president in the future. So because it's had pushback from Democrats as well, from other Democrats. So there was this kind of acceptance that it wasn't going to happen. He did sign those other bills, right? But just not this one that everybody hated.
He's been busy. We have a whole host of bills, including banning cell phones in California schools. We'll get to all of that. He said when he vetoed the AI safety legislation, it doesn't take into account whether an AI system is deployed in high-risk environments, involves critical decision-making, or the use of sensitive data. Remember, this was a bill that was tasking companies creating AIs with proactively making sure that they were safe. He said, instead, the bill applies stringent standards to even the most basic functions, as long as a large system deploys it. I do not believe this is the best approach to protecting the public from real threats posed by the technology. But it was politics ultimately that tanked this bill. Elon Musk supported it.
He was probably the only person that supported
Silicon Valley who liked it.
My point and concern, I think, is that we can impose all the regulations that we want, this bill or some other, but only the good guys are going to follow the regulations and the bad guys are going to do what they want. Yeah.
So, but does that mean we shouldn't have any regulation at all in order to keep up with China and the dark web and whoever else is doing this? At the beginning, Parmi, we were talking about the fact that there aren't really any secrets in creating LLMs and transformers because all of these papers have been published openly and everybody kind of understands how it works. So there's nothing to stop bad guys or a nation state from going full speed ahead with unsafe, whatever that is, unsafe AI.
Yeah, if they want to pay for the access, or if they want to find a way to use a bit of corporate espionage and steal the secrets. I mean, these companies have become more secretive. DeepMind has stopped releasing research in the way that it did just a year ago.
Even OpenAI, which was supposed to be open, kind of
the opposite.
Quite the opposite. They closed as soon as they started making some headway. They said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to tell you how we're doing this." But China's been at this for decades, and they've been using AI for things like social punishment, and so it's. I mean, I presume that China has all of the capabilities we have, and then some. The Chinese government.
I think they have very strong capabilities, but in different areas. So, for example, with facial recognition and vision recognition, China is incredibly strong because there's demand for it for the surveillance, the state surveillance network. And also, large language models, not so much. But there's also a lot of there've been a lot of government subsidies for companies out there. And building AI in China has actually been a lot cheaper than it has been in the U.S. and in the West. Partly for that reason, and the cost of actually accessing this technology has been low.
Such a big topic because there's also an attempt to keep them from having the chips. For instance, the NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA, in fact, had to make dumbed down chips for the Chinese market because the CHIPS Act prevents them from sharing their best technology with Chinese government. It's very, very complicated. We got to take a break, but I'm so glad to have you on, Parmi, to talk about this. I think everybody should read the book Supremacy because it'll give you a good grounding in what's going on, and we have lots more to talk about, not just AI, in just a little bit. Parmi Olson writes for Bloomberg. Her last book was We Are Anonymous. Was that about the anonymous movement?
It was. It was about the hacktivist collective and the splinter group of hackers that wrought havoc across the internet.
Do you think they're going to have I would imagine the same activists would have something to say about AI. I think it's only a matter of time before people start to sabotage AI. I know some artists have done that with their work. They've put stuff in the art that supposedly confuses AI.
Yeah. Well, and some people are taking advantage of it. Like, I could totally imagine people from Anonymous finding ways to exploit, because that's what they do. They're very opportunistic people. Right. Yeah, well, they certainly were 10 years ago, and they're probably finding ways to use generative AI, to social engineer people. And artists are exploiting it too. I know there's a Damien Hirst, who's like an extremely well-known and wealthy artist in the UK, has been generating paintings using AI and selling them, and he's made millions of dollars as a result. So, wow. There's a ton of artists out there who may have had their work ripped off by AI because it's been kind of just sucked into the training data. But then there are others, especially the well-established ones, who have found ways to actually capitalize on it.
Do you think if you were a smart artist, you would adopt it and say, "Oh, this is the future"?
It depends how you define smart, because would you sell your soul to be, to make a smart decision and use AI? I don't know. That gets a little bit philosophical about whether, as an artist, whether you would use AI to create your work. And where you draw the line between the control you have over what you're creating versus where you let the computer step in and create something with you or for you.
Right. That's what's so interesting about this whole thing is there's no agreement. No one knows what's going on. It's very confusing to us mere mortals trying to understand any of this. But I'm so glad we got Parmi Olson to help us out. Of course, Daniel Rubino, editor-in-chief of Windows Central. Lots to talk about in just a bit. In fact, I want to talk more about CoPilot. And Denise Howell, my personal attorney. No, she's not, but she's my internet attorney. That's better. Internet attorney. She's not responsible for all the stupid things I do. Let's put it that way. She's just responsible for trying to talk me out of them and failing. Every once in a while, I get an email from Denise saying, you really shouldn't be doing that.
I would never. We've never had an actual attorney-client relationship.
No, you have no privilege. When I started a Mastodon instance, she told me all the horrible things that could happen to me. Every one of them. And did I pay attention? No, I went full speed ahead, of course, because that's just me. Anyway, great to have all three of you. Our show today brought to you by Lookout. Couldn't be more timely, really. These days, every company is in the business of managing data. Data is the core of it all, right? That means every company is at the increased risk of data exposure and loss. You see in the headlines every day, cyber threats, breaches. I get mail now from companies say, "Oh yeah, we lost all your information. There's been another breach." Constantly leaks, and cyber criminals are not, taking it easy. They're getting more sophisticated every day. Modern breaches now happen in minutes before you could even, respond. You're done. At a time when the majority of sensitive corporate data has moved to the cloud, traditional boundaries for your data no longer exist, and the strategies for securing that data have fundamentally changed. That's why you need Lookout. From the first phishing text to the final data grab, Lookout stops modern breaches as swiftly as they unfold, whether on a device, in the cloud, across networks, or working remotely at the local coffee shop. You've got an employee there. So's your data, right? Lookout gives you clear visibility into all your data at rest and in motion. You'll monitor, assess, and protect without sacrificing productivity and employee satisfaction for security. With a single unified cloud platform, by the way, you will love it. Lookout simplifies and strengthens, reimagines security for the world that's coming today. Visit lookout.com right now and learn how to safeguard your data, secure hybrid work, reduce IT complexity. Lookout.com. We thank them so much for supporting This Week in Tech. We really appreciate it. You support us when you go there, and if they ask you, you say, "Oh, yeah, I saw it on Twit." Thank you, Lookout. Back to the show we go. We're talking about AI. We're talking about all sorts of things. What's the current state of the CoPilot key? I think, Daniel, Microsoft has now said you can change what it does.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you could always remap any key in Windows. That's
I guess you can with the third-party software, right? But now it's in the settings.
Right. Yeah, now it's going to be in settings, which is fine. I mean, I still think it's a good move in terms of just trying to get people to use it more. But even though I use CoPilot quite frequently, even I don't use the key as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually subscribe to Pro because I find it useful actually in Word when I am writing. I do like how you can also use it to change the tone sometimes of what you're trying to write and get across. So there are some valuable aspects to it. And I'm looking forward to getting, creating slides. I think is going to be, as someone who hasn't done PowerPoint in a very long time, very much looking forward to AI being able to build slides based on input, that direction I give it. So I still find it quite useful. I don't know if it's actually worth $20 a month. That's pretty expensive. But the rumor is that some big news is going to be coming out with CoPilot soon. If you've been following CoPilot, they've been pretty quiet on it the last few months, actually. There haven't been a lot of announcements around it. And so we're starting to hear rumblings that there's going to be a lot more coming out pretty soon on that front. So
is it ChatGPT 4.0 that CoPilot uses, or do we know what model it's using? Or
yeah, it uses 4.0. I think the Pro version uses a little bit more of an advanced one.
Okay.
With the Pro, you do get the latest and whatever the fastest one is out there. Plus, you get priority on the server. I will say, I was just at Samsung's event in New York City on Thursday, where they announced the new
tabs.
Yeah, the Galaxy Tab S10. The new keyboard has a AI button.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. For Galaxy AI, which, we all know Samsung's pushing Galaxy AI pretty hard. And they just did the same thing. They created their own key for it. So apparently they like the idea.
That's the thing to
do. Yeah. I could see everybody kind of doing this, right? Because this idea of an AI agent on your system, I think is going to be one of the most critical things in our technology. And Siri is going to do that too for Apple. So I see this as a trend that'll continue.
Stevie Batish I guess it was at Ignite last year, really kind of catalyzed, I thought in a very nice way, the different roles AI would play over time in your computer, from like a sidebar, which is kind of where CoPilot is, to something much more integrated into your daily operation. And Microsoft's moving full speed ahead with that. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely. I know some stuff that's coming.
You can tell us. It's okay. Nobody's listening. Just you and me, baby.
I think this stuff goes, it's pretty obvious where it goes. Where Apple's taking with Siri, this idea of, they tried it a couple years ago, right, with Cortana. And Cortana was
famous.
Cortana was cool. Yeah, but it was a cool idea. It was often faster and better than what Siri was at the time. But at the end of the day, these were still basically dumb systems. Right?
Comparing it to Siri is not exactly the highest bar.
But none of this was truly AI, right? There was no an actual agent there. It was pre-recorded things, and it wasn't very smart. Now we're getting to this fuzzy logic thing where you could just kind of tell it roughly what you want, and it'll figure it out, even in the most rough context. So I feel like
Richard Campbell is listening. He said Stevie's presentation was at Build 2023. That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, Stevie's a great guy. I've met him quite a few times.
Seems so smart.
Very smart, very down to earth too. Just he's doing some really interesting things over at Microsoft.
And he's been able, in a way, I guess he's like a fellow. He's in applied sciences. It's, above like any other role. But he has, in a way that I think others have not been able to, kind of explained what the role of AI is in how people work and what Microsoft's vision is for incorporating that in. And that, to me, is a much better response to AI safety than a bunch of hand waving saying, "Oh, we're gonna make sure it's safe." Talk about the role it's going to play, how it's going to integrate in, what data it's going to use, and what user controls there will be. That's much more concrete to me. And Batish seems good at that.
Yeah, they've always been trying to get ahead of this stuff for the simple reason is that they don't want government to come in. It's not that they're against regulation. They just don't want dumb regulation on this. And they don't want to they don't want a bunch of companies doing a bunch of stuff having massive blowback, government step in and doing, kind of like what this bill was going to be in California, right? Maybe an overreach or kind of limited technology. So Microsoft tries to get ahead of this stuff by being kind of open about what they're doing, transparency, putting everything they want on, websites so you can go read what they're doing, and a way to curb the, from government from doing this. I think ultimately they do support legislation, but they just want it smartly done. And that's a tough thing with this technology, since even all of us have a tough time struggling trying to understand it. You mentioned about, AI safety. Like, what does that even mean, right?
Right.
It's a very weird question, because right now we're talking about large language models mostly, which they're cool. They can do neat things. They're foundational for a lot of other aspects that may come for AI. Then you have like image generators and video generators, but like there's this idea of like, AGI is like what everybody is fearful of. I personally don't think we're anywhere near AGI. I think we're still, because I don't think we've even defined the problems and we know what to solve there.
General intelligence. That's what supremacy is, right? Parmi is a general, like smarter than humans.
Yeah, the quest is about the quest to build AGI.
Yeah.
Which is this very abstract, but and it's interesting when tech companies talk about, or what the likes of Sam or Demis or others talk about, how many years it will take to get there. It's almost like a carrot being dangled in front of us. Like,
Sam in his manifesto said, he said, in some number of thousands of days.
Thousands of days. It kind of reminded me of when someone puts 99 cents on a product instead of $1, just to make it sound like it's sooner than it actually is.
If you want to do the math, 1,000 days is about 3 years. So he could be talking a decade out, but it sounds closer if you say thousands of days. And of course, Ray Kurzweil's been saying it's just a couple of years out for decades.
For decades
now. And it's always getting closer and closer.
Every minute, the singularity is nearer.
I do think it's interesting, the idea of where we are with large language models, because like you can feed it so much information and we have so much computing power these days. There really is a lot it can do. Like, the idea of like it figuring out potential cures for diseases is super fascinating, right? Because it could just do so much data and modeling that humans couldn't do. But I think, this question of AGI does become a little bit more interesting when you start to bring in, can AI, as we know it today with these large language models and advanced systems, kind of figure its own self out on how to create AGI, right? Is it going to lead us down that path for us? I think is an interesting thing, because it's going to take all the world's knowledge and being able to model that, right? So.
I saw just the other day, I saw somebody who works in a medical lab saying AI is not going to cure disease, but what AI might do and help us cure disease is tell us what alleys to investigate, what experiments to do. And over again, that's kind of what I see people say, is that AI is useful hand in hand with a human. Like there's things we bring to the table that AI cannot, but an AI can be useful for a writer to inspire, for a researcher to kind of synopsize a bunch of stuff. But ultimately, the human brain does something qualitatively differently to the material. So it's a good hand-in-hand thing. When I think of AI safety, I worry more about AI and weapons. And companies like Anduril and Palantir, companies, we're seeing it right now in the Ukraine-Russia war. It's a test tube for AI and autonomous weaponry, and it worries the hell out of me. That's a lot more scary than a super intelligence, than the Forbin project.
Well, that's something that Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Parmi,
sorry.
please.
Yeah, go ahead, Parmi.
Oh, I was just going to quickly say that DeepMind, that was one of their big red lines, was not using their AI to be used for military purposes, because they knew that Google had this Project Maven contract with the military, with the Pentagon a number of years ago. But it was one of the reasons why they wanted to break away from Google and become an independent kind of pseudo nonprofit organization, was to protect. When they eventually made AGI, they didn't want Google to have control of it, but they failed, and Google ended up taking control of DeepMind more closely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Denise.
That's all right. What I was going to ask is, and I see this in Sam Altman's latest Manifesto.
You can call
if
it
we're
a
calling
manifesto.
It that.
I like that. Yeah.
And elsewhere, just in the discourse, Leo, you were just saying how, right now we're sort of working hand in hand and the humans have something to bring to the table. But of course, nobody talks about the next step anymore, which is artificial superintelligence. And,
do you think we're going to get there, Denise?
I mean, I'm not the person to ask that question of,
Well, I don't know anybody who knows better. This is the problem. You can ask 12 different AI scientists and you're going to get 12 different answers because nobody really knows if we can make that final leap into intelligence. There are people who believe, and I don't know what I think, but there are people who believe, like Steve Gibson, Security Now, that humans are just mechanisms, that we're just deterministic mechanisms. We're just like a computer that's really, really good, and that there's nothing to distinguish what a AI is doing from what a human is doing, and eventually AIs will get fast enough, big enough, whatever, to duplicate what we do. So there's nothing special about what we do. And then there are people, and Ray Kurzweil, by the way, is one of those people who believes that. Then there are people who think, no, there's something different that a human does that a von Neumann device cannot duplicate. There is some magical quality that humans have that machines can't have. So far, those people are right? I mean, the art, the writing, the stuff AI generates is mediocre in the extreme. It is not.
I think that's just a matter of time. I think.
Well, so you fall in that first camp. You think eventually it's going to catch up.
And I think so part of the problem here with AGI is the simple fact that we don't even know what consciousness is. We haven't defined it. We don't know how to study it. We don't even know what it is necessarily. We know, okay, it comes from the human brain, but we don't know, its exact description and how and why it's here, like how it actually happens, right? So there's all sorts of weird theories there about that. So when it comes to like this super intelligence, the thing is, it's like the Turing effect, right? Where if I give you a computer and it simulates a human being, you may think it acts like a human being and therefore it is. But, is it really?
That's why the Turing test is a crap test, because you can do that.
Because tricking people is super easy.
We're not super smart.
So if you have like AI and it's like, oh, it seems like it has consciousness, like we don't know even how to test for consciousness or like how to define it. So it becomes a really strange question. But I'm in that camp of, I've been reading Sapolsky's book Determined, and which he argues against free will.
By the way, his stuff is great.
And I'm just in that camp, like, sorry, we are just kind of machines and cogs. We do have a lot more going on in our brain, but at the same time, it's ultimately we're the sum of our experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's how Sam Altman and Demis Hassabis also view humans, is that our brains can effectively be replicated by machines. Machines are extensions of our brains, and they are being modeled on our brains. That's how we're kind of building them based on the brain as an inspiration. But like, Leo, when you were saying earlier that in the future, like, we'll always need to have a human, working with a machine, and have some element of the human in. I also question that, like in 10, 15, 20 years.
Will we need that input? Yeah.
And I don't know that necessarily means that computers will be conscious necessarily, but we're going to outsource so much more cognitive labor to these things over the next 10, 20 years, just because we can, because it's easier, because we're going to save money from doing it. Companies are going to make a ton of money from doing that. So why not? So they will. And then our definition of consciousness maybe will change. That's kind of semantics in a way. But I think that's where these things will become powerful. And that's just I see that as inevitable over the next decade or so.
Just two things too. This is why I always find weird about Elon Musk, where he's at the same time talking about AI all the time, started his own company, of course, talks about, the fear of it. And then he's also going off about human population decline all the time. We all got to make tons of babies. But all the arguments for this kind of AI is exactly what you're talking about, which is we're going to use it to offload a lot of jobs. Actually, and it's going to be the economies with declining populations who will benefit the most from this, since they'll be able to offload a lot of that work to computers, to AI, to robots, the very things he's building. But some reason he thinks that, I don't know, he hasn't made that connection yet, where everyone else kind of has. The other thing I would say is there's a great movie from 1970. It's not many people have ever seen it. It's a British one called Colossus, The Forbin Project.
The Forbin Project. I referred to it earlier. I love that movie.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that movie's fantastic.
Writing this down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because like, what's funny about that though, when we talk about AI, it's like the movie starts off. They're like turned on the computer. They're like, there, it is connected to every single infrastructure in the United States, including our weapons. And you're like, what are you doing?
That seems a bad idea, right?
Yeah. So like, maybe
just on the surface of it.
If you do create a supercomputer and AGI, maybe the first thing you shouldn't do is connect it to your entire infrastructure. Yeah, and
grids.
But see, that's the thing that's scary. That's where I'm more worried about AI safety. That's what's happening in Ukraine right now, right?
Kind of right there. So
they just attached a robot dog to a drone so they can fly it into Russia and drop it in Russia. I can't imagine anything more terrifying.
But I think those kinds of, I mean, if you want to continue going down this route, like I think that's one element of AI safety. But then there's also a more subtle, nuanced consequence that's squishier and harder to foresee, which is kind of like the consequences we got from social media, for instance. Like, who would have guessed with social media, which came to us to connect the world, that was Mark Zuckerberg's big MO, that it would also have these side effects where there would be misinformation. A lot of teens would find their mental health hampered, especially young girls on Instagram, polarization, political polarization, filter bubbles, all those things. But it's also useful. It's not like we're going to shut social media down. It's a utility. It's practically it's an infrastructure for us. So it's very difficult to regulate, but it does also have these kind of real world human consequences. And that's also an element of AI safety that I'm concerned about, that will have similar kinds of erosions of various things that we value as humans, whether it's our relationships or our critical thinking skills or our creativity, the value of human creativity. I think those kinds of values will start to get eroded as we rely more and more on generative AI models and all the amazing things they can do over the next decade. Again, I don't see this happening in the next year or two, but really over the next decade or so.
I'm 100% on board with that. And I'm going to make a groundbreaking prediction right here that Gen X is going to be the one that sells its soul because so many things become so convenient. Yeah, we don't have one anyway. But so many things, that bug us are going to get taken off our plate. If, for example, CoPilot can stop my dad from calling me every time he can't find the right draft of the document that he's looking for on his computer. And so you've got it coming down from that side because our parents are young enough to use computers, but not old enough to really get them, or not young enough to really get them.
Worst combination.
Right, exactly. And then there on the other side, there are kids who, are constantly in need of help and support. And if they would just do the homework, literally the homework or the research or whatever themselves, they could figure it out. But no, they always come to mom and dad. So
here's the question for you all. Let's say we knew 10, 20 years ago that social media was going to cause these problems. What would we have done differently? What's the model for what we should do now with AI that we could have done 20 years ago with the advent of the internet and social networks?
Well, we know these
algorithms.
Really? Yeah. But would we have done that? No algorithms. Let's not use algorithms.
No, open source them yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So by that, do you mean like more transparency for like third party auditing by whether it's like an auditing firm or a regulatory agency that's really like, if in an ideal world that really had the expertise to look at algorithms and say, okay, look, you guys have started optimizing for engagement. What effect is that going to have now that your news feed is going to start putting all the outrage inducing posts at the top of the feed? So I think I agree. Transparency would be. We could have, by the way,
known that because we've seen that happen with, for instance, broadcast television, which went from something that was going to transform society to a vast wasteland simply by pandering to what people wanted. Their own kind of slow algorithms. So we got fast algorithms with social media and got the same thing happen much more quickly.
In
But
some
I
ways,
don't
we did
know
have
if
it
we
right,
have the
though.
will to intervene, if we would have had the will then, or if we have the will now to intervene in these things. Or whether we would intervene even intelligently.
True. I mean, but like, we did have the idea of like the idea of moderation, right? And that if you own a property, if you own a website,
We
if you
could
own
have
a social
required
network,
that, huh? Yeah.
you're entitled to moderate that network, and according to what. But now there's blowback against that, where people are conflating it with, free speech. Which there is
somebody in our Discord, Santa Barbarian, says, we now know that Section 230's reach was too broad. I would disagree with that, but
yeah, I mean,
that's the problem.
I'm one of those people, like, if you own a website, and Twitter is a website, if you own that and you set up the rules and people agree to your terms of service, you're letting them into it's your property. You can do whatever you want in terms of regulation and moderation. So I don't understand how people are conflating this idea that, like, well, when a social network gets to a certain size, arbitrarily, we won't even define that. It now becomes a public commodity where it's now under different rules, and we don't need to moderate it and do all these different things. I don't know.
Who are you going to trust?
It's a very anti-capitalist method.
Who are you going to trust to decide what's okay and what's not okay? And that doesn't, at least in the United States, that changes every 4 years. Yeah. So I don't. In the UK, it changes even faster, doesn't it, Parmy? So I don't really know who you're going to trust. Who are you going to ask?
That's where you have private networks, right? But like, so if the idea is, it could be a Facebook, it moderates a certain way. It's supposed to deliver an experience that people enjoy and go to for that experience, right? If they don't enjoy that experience, a competing website will come out and offer something.
You're saying
different.
The free market. The free market.
Yeah, because you have extremes, right? You have like 4chan, which is like, we're not going to really moderate. And then, of course, they did do some moderation, right? But then you have other companies who then host them and are like, well, we're going to express our own moderation and we're not going to host you, right? I mean, this is technically how this is all supposed to work. But for some reason, everybody got sensitive feelings all of a sudden. And it's like, well, that private company can't actually tell its users what it can and can't do. It's like, since when? I don't know. Just because it's virtual, if you walk into someone's store and they start behaving erratically and you're like, could you please leave? Is someone going to come in and be like, no, you can't tell them to leave. It's a public space. It's like,
this is an age-old conversation between the invisible hand of the free market versus every other thing we've thought of, planned economies, and we've never come up with a good solution. But the free market and capitalism seems the best of the worst solutions. I don't know if we've ever solved this.
Right. And then you can throw in government's role, which, you've never been able, to your point about Section 230, Leo, to do illegal things on Facebook.
Right.
Because Section 230 doesn't shield them from that.
Yes.
Right. But then it becomes a question of enforcement, and the government has to step in and say, hey, look at all those terrorists. let's have you do something about them.
And we know, Facebook was very instrumental in a genocide in Myanmar. I mean, we've seen these platforms be used despite every law against it in horrible ways. So I don't know what the answer is. I
think that's what a lot of governments are fearful of right now. This social engineering,
they're losing control.
Fake info.
Yeah,
you're losing control. No one knows what to do. It reminds me of early COVID. People always are, in hindsight now, like, oh, we screwed up. They overreached. But
it's easy to know.
When it first happened, no one knew what was going on. Like we used to wipe down all our products because we don't know. Maybe
we don't know. Maybe that's how you get it,
right?
Yeah.
But that's the same thing with how we may be overreacting on social networks and regulation, and government steps in, tells Facebook, you got to take that down. Yeah, it may be wrong, but it's because governments are worried about losing control, and it's a real concern. I don't know what the solution is, and we're going to get some things wrong, but there is going to have to be this kind of give and pull, give and take when it comes to this stuff.
We're going to take a little break, come back with more. This is a fascinating conversation. We've had it before. I don't know if we've ever come to a solution on it, but it is a very interesting world we are living in, isn't it? Parmy Olson is here. She's the author of a new book called Supremacy, AI, ChatGPT, and the Race That Will Change the World. Wow, just came out. It's available right now from St. Martin's Press. Is that right? Let me look. Yes, St. Martin's Press. Thank you for being here, Parmi. We appreciate it. And thank Isla for letting us use her bedroom. Daniel Rubino is also here, editor-in-chief of Windows Central. Great to have you. I like having smart people on because this is such a challenging conversation and such a challenging world we're growing up in. We're living in, our kids are growing up in, that it feels like we should be able to come to a solution, and yet it's so difficult, so challenging. And Denise Howell, who is a parent like me, who is looking at our kids and saying, "What do we do? What a world! What a world! How's your son doing?"
He's great. He was actually home from college this weekend. So
is he liking it?
Yeah, very well. Everybody likes some aspect of college and is challenged by others, and he is having very much that experience. But he goes to school in San Diego, so it can't be all bad.
No.
We
could surfing, baby.
Yes.
Yes. Our show today, we're so happy to have him as a sponsor, is brought to you by the great folks at 1Password. I know you know the name. 1Password has found an interesting solution to a problem that is very common in business. Let me ask you a question. It's kind of a rhetorical question. Do your end users always work on company-owned devices and only use IT-approved apps? No, of course not. So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged apps, those BYOD devices? 1Password has an answer to that question. They call it extended access management. This is more than password management. This is really, really a good idea. 1Password extended access management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device. It solves problems traditional IAM and MDM just can't touch. The best way to think of this is as your company's security is like the quad of a college campus. Somewhere maybe that your son might be, Denise, with a beautiful green lawn, brick buildings, ivy covered, and of course, nice brick paths leading from building to building. Those would be the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. Everything's perfect there, right? And then there are the paths people actually use, the shortcuts worn through the grass, the actual straightest line from building A to building B. The real world, those are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors in your network. Most security tools just assume, you got happy brick paths, everything's going to be fine, we're going to only work there. But really, where do the security problems take place? They take place on the shortcuts, on the paths that users are wearing, themselves into the green sward. 1Password extended access management is the first security solution that takes all those unmanaged devices, all those apps, and puts them under your control, all those identities. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we work today. It is now generally available to companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra, and they're in beta for Google Workspace customers. So if you're using Okta for authentication, it takes the next step and makes sure those devices are also authenticated. It's really a great idea. Check it out. 1password.com/twit. Again, for Okta and Entra, and in beta now for Google Workspace, it's the number 1 password.com/twit. What a great idea this is. 1password.com/twit. We thank them for their support of This Week in Tech and your support too. When you go to that address, make sure you do 1password.com/twit. We were talking about image generation, artists using that. Of course, there's been a lot of artists, filmmakers upset with Stable Diffusion and its ability to create not just stills now, but video. The company behind Stable Diffusion, Stability AI, has just named James Cameron to their board of directors. That is wild. A great filmmaker who's always been, I have to say, on the cutting edge of technology. Director of Avatar, the Avatar movies and the Terminator movies and Titanic. This is obviously good PR for Stability AI, right? And it means, I think that Hollywood is going to kind of embrace the idea, and I can imagine this is the case, of AI-generated short clips and films, coverage, transitions, things you forgot to shoot. The AI, we've seen it, can do a pretty amazing job.
I went down a rabbit hole on YouTube where people are taking clips from movies and then using AI to rewrite part of the scene.
Wow.
So you'll watch the scene, it's like really playing, and at some point AI steps in and completely changes the outcome of it.
What's that? How do I search for that? That sounds wild.
I think it's like AI.
AI film changing.
It's like autocomplete for movie scenes.
Yeah, kind of. It got me thinking just about how like people remix music today. This is on a small scale. These are great when people redo like movies and stuff like that, but like in a 1950s Panavision, those are amazing. But like I can envision, this stuff, like people doing fan edits of movies, right?
This is the Terminator redone in 70 millimeter Panavision. Look at that. This is done by an AI, right?
It looks so cool.
Wow.
It's only going to get better too.
Yeah, I mean,
well, and this raises an interesting topic because I've already seen pictures of Joe Biden in a wheelchair at a McDonald's.
Oh yeah.
I've seen some really interesting deep fakes. I don't think they're good enough to fool anybody yet, but they are memes. They are meme generators and as we know, memes can carry a lot of psychological import. They can really change your mind about things.
I think with this news, this is really also a reflection of Stability AI's ability to get a really big name on its board.
That is a big name.
And so after I saw this news headline, I interviewed the founder of Stability AI back in August 2022. His name is Ahmad Mostaq. He's not CEO anymore. He had to step down a few months ago. Because investors were not happy with the way he was running things. But I remember I looked through the transcript of our conversation, and because I remember him mentioning James Cameron when we met, and I looked, and he'd said, we want to try and make an AI generated movie, and we're going to spend X million dollars on this, and we're talking to James Cameron to be the director. So he was already planning this back in August 2022.
Wow.
For them to have got him on the board, I think it's a huge. I mean, he's so influential in filmmaking, right? He is like an icon for filmmakers, and just as he said in his statement, like he has used, whether it's in Avatar or in Terminator, he has absolutely embraced technology for CGI and to as part of his filmmaking. So it's probably going to just. I don't know if it's going to alleviate any of the fears about AI in creative industries and filmmaking, but I think it's going to help create this sense of acceptance of using it.
Meanwhile, of course, SAG-AFTRA is calling a strike against League of Legends because they're using AI voices instead of real players' voices to get around the video game strike, and also non-union performers. So there is definitely a push-pull going on in Hollywood over AI. It's very interesting. Speaking of AI, did anybody buy the Rabbit R1?
No.
Rabbit is now saying only
that one.
They sold 100,000, I think. I don't know how many were returned. Only 5,000 people use it daily. This Benito and I like this because it came from it was designed by Teenage Engineering, so it really looked cool. But then we found out, it was just an AI app running on Android, running on a cool-looking unit.
Did you buy one, Leo?
No, I can't. I was. You know what? I pushed the buy button, and then it didn't take my credit card, and I thought, and I ran away from because
avoided buyer's remorse.
I buy all this stuff. They have pushed out 16 software updates. They sold 100,000. This is like that. What was that projection pen that you pin?
Humane pen.
Humane pen, and so these hardware. And I'm waiting. I did order.
It works as a phone, right?
No.
Well, so
it doesn't do anything. It just does the one thing.
Well, in the article in the rundown, there is the text. The R1 had become somewhat useless to many, leading some to turn it into a more capable Android phone.
Yeah, you could. And I think that it came with cellular connectivity because that's how it went out and it did things. So the theory was, it can call an Uber for you. You don't need a phone because you just have the AI in the R1 get you an Uber. I mean, honestly, I think in some time, 10 years maybe, these will be commonplace. I ordered the pin that's supposed to record everything that happens in my life and then tell me what happened. Is
this Friend? The friend.com?
No,
pendant?
what was it called? It was, it's never come. It was supposed to come back in August. Limitless, I think it was. Limitless.ai. They made a pin that you clip on, and then it would it's magic. It would record everything, and if it didn't know the voice, it would you could ask, hey, do you mind if I record this for later for notes? And if the person said yes, it would then add that voice to your list of approved voices. Anyway, I ordered it. Don't have it. Someday.
I'm so intrigued by those devices.
Me
the
too.
other one is friend.com, which is like, it's a pendant and it does similar things. It's got a always on microphone and records your conversation, so you can ask it through your phone. What about that chat I had with Tom? Did he come off as passive aggressive? Or
interesting.
What do you think about and it can make judgments about your conversations, or
it says
a date
friend,
that you just had.
not imaginary.
Just in case you weren't sure about that. Just to
it might
clarify.
be $99, and it will come someday. I'm also waiting for my glasses with the AR glasses that I ordered from Brilliant Labs. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I'm a sucker. Now, what I do have, and Mark Zuckerberg talked about it this week on at the Connect event, is the Meta glasses, which are getting smarter and smarter.
Yeah, people really like those.
This, you know what? Because they attempt so little.
Yeah.
There is an AI in it. You could say, what am I looking at? And it kind of gives you, I asked it, what am I looking at? And they said, well, there's a lot of screens and wires. It didn't really, let me see if I can, what am I looking at? I can't remember how I'm supposed to do this. Hey, Meta, what am I looking at? It's thinking.
Well, it's thinking.
You're looking at, oh, wait a minute.
Possibly used for live streaming or video production.
Possibly used for live streaming and video production. It actually understood what it was seeing, which is
there you go.
Pretty wild. You can take videos with it and pictures. And Mark says we're going to have a new version of these, which I think they are selling quite well because they just look like glasses, right?
Well, that's a problem. And that's a problem that Friend Not Imaginary has too. At least 13 states have two-party consent laws. You can't just go around recording people.
Well, that's what that Limitless was supposed to get around was you have to ask permission. It won't record it if it doesn't recognize the voice, but if you ask permission and Denise and you said, yes, okay, then it would add it and it would start recording you as well. This see the little light that comes on when I record?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's not...
It's not red. It's interesting they
super
didn't make it
obvious,
red.
is
They
it?
make it white. Yeah. So it's not the most obvious. It's not it doesn't strike that same triggering feeling of like seeing a red light on a camera. Suddenly you're on.
You right now.
It's a white light. But it's interesting that I'm really impressed by the success of these glasses, the Ray-Bans that Meta's had out. And I think a part of it is just that they don't look like tech glasses. They look like normal glasses. And they don't make you look really nerdy and awful like the Google Glass did. And other like Snap's augmented reality glasses also look really silly. And I think a lot of these companies just underestimate how important people care, how much people care about what they look like when they wear tech.
Did you see
and it has to disappear.
Apple has, I think, I've said this all along, but
they overshot.
I think Apple's kind of missed the boat with Vision Pro. It's $3,500, and I don't think anybody wants to strap a heavy computer on their face. I think that's really a lot of it. Meta's still going to sell their Meta Quest, but one of the things they talked about is Orion, which is not available yet, but in fact, Mark,
Expensive.
the guy came out with a briefcase that was handcuffed to his wrist. And he said, this is the only one of these. But they did show it to some people. They are working on it. They look like these, only they're a little thicker. I think, this is something. There they are. There's the Orion glasses. And these are augmented reality. These have an interesting technology to kind of shoot video into your pupils as opposed to reflect them off the glass. Mm-hmm. I think that they're on the right track, but who knows how much it'll cost, whether, what they'll be like or whatever. This is their first time they've talked about this. I'm very interested that Meta has basically, by the way, at Meta Connect, the developers conference, Mark didn't even say the word Facebook once. He mentioned Instagram, but I think really that Zuckerberg has decided we're going to take all the money we make off Facebook and ride it down into the sunset, because the only people who use it now are older people, and then go into this VR, AR metaverse thing.
I mean, kind of has to, right? Because this the problem with all these social networks is at some point you reach market saturation,
right? And
you just can't grow anymore. So as a company, what do you do then? You can't just be like, well, we're kind of fine this quarter too, right? Yeah. But if you go into other growth areas,
or you could
more opportunity.
Sell it to Elon Musk if you're cagey.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe he'll buy it.
But the hard part is that they don't have a platform associated with this technology, right? Because at least in
they
Facebook
have Horizons.
And Instagram, they have Horizons, but no one. I mean, I have a Quest 3, and I've been in Horizon events in the Horizon rooms, and there's no one there. Yeah, there's no one there. It's like tumbleweeds. So
that was even the story a couple of months ago, that even Meta's own employees don't ever use Horizon.
Yeah, why should they? There's nothing to do, and it's really there's a hardcore group of, like, I think small. Yeah. There's always like a community of people who will keep going because they really get something out of it, but it's nowhere near getting mainstream success. If anything, I think user numbers have really declined significantly.
Do you think the case platform. With Vision Pro as well? With Apple's product?
I don't. Well, I'm totally with you, Leo, on what you were saying. It's almost like they're trying to do too much in one go, and people just aren't ready for it. But they don't do that. I don't think Apple has like a social platform for people to meet and mingle in virtual reality like Meta does.
No, honestly, I think the real future is not VR. The future is AR, and the idea that you could have these glasses on, look completely normal, well, nerdy, but normal, and be getting information through them. They showed a simultaneous translation, which is nerdy because you say something and then the person has to wait, and then the translation gives him the translation, then he responds. So there's this kind of lag in the conversation, but it is, you're having a real-time conversation with somebody in a language you don't speak. That's pretty cool. I think
the best part is?
What?
It's going to be used for ads at some point.
Oh, God.
It's going to be flocking around. It'll be just ads popping up as you in your real world.
It'll be Minority Report.
Yeah.
Of course it will, because of course it will. Because that's.
But it was like you were saying, Daniel, in the very beginning when we were talking about Microsoft Recall. Like, how do people expect to use AI? Like, it's just going to be ingesting information, and people are just. It's going to become normalized, and people are going to get used to it. And I think it's a similar situation with these glasses. The more the tech disappears, and it doesn't look like tech anymore, and people don't realize or care as much that they're being filmed or being recorded, then there's just going to be a whole boatload of new data and information for Meta to ingest and use for ad targeting.
Yeah, look at the watch. The Apple Watch was so novel when it first came out. Not very many people had them. Now, so many people have them. We don't even think twice about it. And to that point, Apple at one point partnered with Hermes to do an incredibly expensive watch band. I could see them, Prada makes eyewear. I could see them partnering up with somebody very high end and maybe trying to take the nerd edge off the product.
Yeah, we don't know that Apple's not doing the same thing Meta is and working on AR glasses at the same time as they did.
I mean, there's that rumor that they're doing a lighter version, right, to bring down the price, and like it won't have as many features, which I think seems obvious. I still think we talked about this on the last time I was on here. They're starting from the wrong end. They went from let's put everything we can imagine in this crazy technology and then whittle it down as we figure out what people don't want, versus starting off very simple, which is kind of what Facebook and Meta is doing here with these glasses, and then adding features as people want more things. I've always said with these AR glasses, yeah.
I was just to your point. That's how they did it with the iPhone, right? They didn't have a ton of apps on there. Exactly. It was just a few apps, start small, and then grow from there. Yeah. So it's weird that they did it in that opposite direction.
Your colleague at Bloomberg, who is probably the most connected Apple rumor guy, Mark Gurman, wrote in his Sunday newsletter today, Meta's new headsets show Apple has lost its way with the Vision Pro. Yeah, he believes that Apple, while they're working on other stuff, they just haven't really found a market for the Vision Pro. He says it wants to turn the product into a line of devices with different features and price points, but it's not starting from a rock solid foundation, to say the least. The headset is more of a technology showcase than a genuine consumer product. There's little reason for someone to buy a Vision Pro instead of a computer. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if you were going to be generous, you could say, yes, this is a technology showcase. So now they're going to whittle things down and start with something a little bit more basic. But I don't know. It sounds like a strange strategy for Apple to
they're going to cut out a lot to get down to like where the Ray-Ban Metas are at this point. Like, I mean, you're just going to like throw everything out. I've always had these AR glasses too. Sorry, I was just going to say that like what would make them really fascinating is with those cameras, of course, is facial recognition. When you're talking to someone, it immediately looks them up and brings up their their name. Yeah, it's like
his name is Daniel Rubino. You used to work with him.
Just their LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. In 20 years, I'm going to need that. I'm just telling you, Daniel. you are.
What school they went to and like conversation
how many kids they have. Yeah.
That's what I meant when I said Gen X is going to sell their soul. They need that.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's another example of that. Yes. They're going to be the early adopters. I don't care
if I look at this picture of Mark Zuckerberg from Gurman's column. I don't care if I even look like that. I don't care.
Oof.
I mean, even speaking to Denise's point there, it's like when Clear came out for the airport, I was like, and then TSA breathed, and I stacked them. I'm like, I don't care. Take all my fingerprints, bodily fluids, as long as I can go through security quicker. I don't care.
Would you do Sam Altman's orb? Would you look into he's doing iris scans. You can't change your iris. He's doing iris scans and giving people a handful of WorldCoin all over the world. In fact, he's been kicked out of a number of countries because it's a little skeezy. But would you give him your iris? You gave the federal government your iris.
I gave it to Clear.
Yeah.
You gave it to Clear, and that's a private company. I gave it to the TSA for, what do we call it? Pre-check.
It's worth it, right?
But my point there being, I guess more sanguine about giving it to the U.S. government or a state government than I am to a private company. Witness 23andMe.
Yeah, I gave them my spit, and now I don't know what's going to happen with it.
But also that's Clear is like that's one-to-one facial recognition, right? When you use facial recognition to unlock your phone, that's one-to-one. But using it in glasses for a more kind of one-to-many approach, where you're looking at a crowd of people or a random face comes up to you and then somehow that gets identified. That's a little bit more creepy, and I think in a problematic area when it comes to privacy, especially. That's where we're in surveillance territory.
Google said it had that capability years ago and declined to do it because of stalking and other issues. That you would use it.
They shut that business down. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I used to have a Hello doorbell, and it was supposed to recognize people when they came up to the door, and it didn't. And I think that's why they just didn't want to risk that.
There is a company though that was doing this or is doing this, right? But they're scraping the web for all these images.
Clearview AI.
Yeah, that's it.
And very kind of suspect on it. On the other hand, by the way,
there you go.
If you go to Clearview AI, look at the headline: How Clearview AI helped shape the war in Ukraine. Great, great. On the other hand, if Taylor Swift uses AI as she does at her concerts to keep stalkers out, I support that. I think that's fine. So, as with all this stuff, It's really hard to
Upside
find a
downside.
bright moral line, yes or no, on this.
Well, anything that helps you keep the lawyers out, a la Madison Square Garden. Do you remember that
Yes.
story?
Oh yes.
Yes, that's hysterical.
That was
Of course,
that was a crazy story. Yes.
MSG is owned by the Dolans, and he is kind of famously litigious, and he used the AI at both. It was not just Madison Square Gardens, but also I think at Radio City Music Hall, and very famously
that was
last
the one,
Christmas. An attorney and her family tried to see the Rockettes Christmas show.
Yeah.
They let the family in, but they said, you cannot go in because you work for a law firm that we are in litigation with. And I don't know if did she sue? Does she have any grounds for suit? I don't know. She said it was very humiliating, and I guess it would be.
Yeah, I think there was some litigation over that. I don't know exactly what happened. I will Google in the background.
Yeah. The Dolans are. He also owns the Sphere in Las Vegas. You know, I just feel like we shouldn't have billionaires. We should just legislate them out of existence. Forget all the other stuff. Let's just legislate billionaires out of existence. I don't know. Let's take a little break because I want to be a billionaire, and I am going to do everything I can with ad after ad after ad to make as much money as possible. No, that's not me. I'm sorry to say. That's why I'm in my attic. I never quite worked that part out. Our show today, though, I'll tell you, early on in the show, you remember we had Salt Hank on, and I didn't ask him this, but I know for a fact that his whole business is powered by Shopify. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Shopify. So many businesses, big and little, in brick and mortar or online, use Shopify. If you think about businesses whose sales are rocketing, Allbirds, for instance. I'm wearing my Allbirds right now. Or Untuck It. I have many Untuck It shirts. You think about an innovative product, a progressive brand, and buttoned-down marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. That's it. I love Shopify. They've made it possible for my son to literally create his own business. All of his sales are done by Shopify. Nobody does sales better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not so secret with Shop Pay, conversions are boosted up to 50%. Far fewer carts going abandoned, way more sales being made. Yeah. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whatever your customers are scrolling or strolling, because Shopify is everywhere your customers are. And that's the beauty of Shopify, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Salt Hank uses, and Allbirds, and Untuck It. Sign up for your $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/twit. That's all lowercase. Shopify, shopify.com/twit. Upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/twit. There you go. I played that sound effect one time too many last week, and they had to edit it out. They don't want too many of those, so I'll use this when the commercial's over, and then we will all know.
Can we screen that out with AI?
Yeah, the commercial or just the sound effect?
Just the sound effect.
Yeah, I think Benito used a razor blade and tape, but I think he got it done.
Yeah.
Something.
So update on the lawyer and Madison Square Garden. She did sue. There was an injunction in place. The trial court said, no, they really shouldn't be able to do that, at least while the trial is pending. So there was an injunction put in place. Then there was saying, no, you can't screen out your opposing lawyers anymore. Then there was an appeal, and the appeals court set it aside and said, yes, indeed.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
You're a private enterprise. You can do anything you want.
Right. The lawyer is good at making his case for the quote unquote mother, separating a mother from her daughter and
From
Girl
her
Scouts.
children and a Girl Scout.
Girl Scouts she was watching over.
That's right. She had a troop with her. That's
Yes,
right.
exactly.
I do remember the New York City tried to prevent him from doing it at Madison Square Garden by threatening his liquor license.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, you can block people, but we're not going to let you sell liquor at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And Dolan said, fine. No liquor. You tell all those Bruins fans there's no liquor for you, thanks to the New York City Board of Liquor.
Yeah.
The FTC actually has weighed in on AI. So we've all experienced this. You're looking for, and in certain product categories, it seems to be more common. You're looking for a mattress, and you go to a website, which looks like a real website, and has all these mattress reviews, but there's something a little off about it. The FTC has said, Lena Khan went after AI-generated best lists, and they have a little section of rules just for them now, barring this exact thing. It's a violation for anyone, quote, to use an unfounded. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. So you know about those. FTC bans product review suppression. You better help me out, lawyer. The FTC says it's a violation for anyone to use, quote, an unfounded or groundless legal threat, a physical threat, intimidation, or a public false accusation. Oh, this is when you get upset at a review. Like,
yes.
Remember the book, The Everything Store, about Amazon?
I love that book.
It's a great book.
Brad Stone. Yeah.
Brad's fantastic. And at one point in the reviews on Amazon, Jeff Bezos' ex, she wasn't his ex at the time, got in there and said, this is a terrible book. Anyway, you cannot threaten. So it's more like for, I got this wrong.
No, you're right. There's a new rule on the use of consumer reviews and testimonials, and they are indeed cracking down in the way you're suggesting.
So I'm confusing two different things.
You are confusing two different things. The interesting thing about, it's very interesting that they're cracking down on fake reviews, and yay, thank goodness. And
good.
The Salon article in the rundown is just written with such snark and irony.
It's so well written.
Yes. I encourage people to go read it. Who's it by here? Hold on.
I couldn't. So this, this is Ray Hodge writing in Salon, AI Smackdown, how a new FTC ruling just protected the free press. Now, this is going to be hard to get to that point, but I'll explain. She writes, I couldn't be more delighted to be the bearer of such bad news. If you're a digital media company whose revenue comes from publishing AI-generated articles and fake product reviews which pose as journalism, what I just described, then FTC Chair Lena the Lion Khan just landed on your wallet with a WWE-style people's elbow drop from the top rope. So you might want to lawyer up, pal, because this one's going to hit you where it hurts.
She's got style.
So what she didn't.
Unfortunately, your style confused me completely because it seems like it's two different things now. So explain.
Well, it's very much all about stamping out these fake review sites, any sorts of, pumping up anything on Amazon with fake reviews, all of that. But it also is sort of down far in the text of the new rule. You can no longer buy followers for your social media account. Which
that's interesting.
You can't buy reviews anymore. So if you're a business, you're a business and you're putting fake reviews on Yelp, the FTC is going to go after you.
Yeah.
Nor can you threaten bad reviews, which happens all the time. Somebody writes a bad review of a restaurant and the restaurateur goes after them. It's a violation for a business to provide compensation or other incentives in exchange for a condition expressly or by implication on. You lawyers, can we get an AI to rewrite this? The writing or creation of consumer reviews
English,
expressing
please.
a particular sentiment, whether positive or negative, regarding the product, service, or business. Anyway,
I'm not a congressperson.
that's true. That's
or an
a law, or a regulation.
Regulator.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is kind of like this is the big battle to try and keep authenticity on the web, which is such a tough one because already, even without generative AI, it's so hard to trust what you see on social media, whether it's a bot or is it a real person? Is the review I read on Amazon really written by a real person, or was that a bot? Can I trust all these reviews on Airbnb or whatever? It's like we're kind of SEO, the gaming of Google search. How much can I trust that these are like objectively relevant web links for me whenever I do Google search? So I don't know. I think it's going to be really tough because another statistic I've heard is that in the next few years, the web is just going to be absolutely awash with AI generated content. Like something like 80 to 90% of the content will be AI generated. So this is a huge battle. It's very heartening, but it's a huge battle.
It's funny. The prologue of your book, Parmi, after picking up this book and reading these first few words, you might be wondering if a human wrote them.
I had to put that in there. In the very beginning.
I saw when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago a previews of a new play, which I would recommend to everybody. It's Robert Downey's Jr.'s Broadway debut. It's called McLean. And the premise of it is he is a Nobel laureate fiction writer, and it starts to come out that he's been using AI to write his fiction. So obviously it's the near future.
Relevant.
Really good play. I really enjoyed it, and it's at the Lincoln Center right now. I imagine it will do well on Broadway because it's got Robert Downey Jr. in it. He's quite good in it. But it's exactly, I think it's just a matter of time before there's some scandal that a well-known novelist has been using AI to polish up. It was kind of scandalous when we found out that some of our favorite, fiction authors used ghostwriters, or hadn't written a book in years, but had somebody writing it for them. I'm not going to name any names, Danielle Steele or anybody like that, but I think that's not uncommon. But imagine if they started using AIs to do it. I think that's just a matter of time.
I'm going to offer a controversial take and say there's a market for it. And, if
people buy it and read it, I guess it's just as good, right?
Right. And there should be disclosure.
You shouldn't win the Nobel Prize for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you would.
It's actually, they leave it a little ambiguous. It's really an interesting play because it really talks about all these things that we've been talking about with AI. And that's what I love it when art kind of talks about this. But back to the FTC.
I've got a quick question about that real quick, Leo.
Yeah.
If a book is written by AI, could I not just go into ChatGPT and have it write another book, the same book?
Right. You could.
Yeah. So no one would buy that book then, because I could just go.
But
it wouldn't be identical.
It's all about the prompt, the crafting, and the human creativity is now all just in the prompt.
And of course, the author would sue you because you've wholesale taken their book to train.
Sue me, but not the AI?
But the AI wrote the original.
Probably sue you. And sue, some of the lawyers are thorough. They're going to sue you both. There are a lot of those lawsuits pending, by the way.
I have to share this. I spoke to someone in book publishing recently who's relatively high up, and I asked about whether they would consider publishing books, AI-generated books, but trained where the model has been trained on the work of a particular novelist who has died, but who's like really, really successful, and they want to keep that revenue stream going. Would they consider publishing books that are AI generated? And they said yes. They said they would. And I think it's really, really interesting, Denise. You said that there is a market for this, because I think the question is, would people read it? I actually think they would.
It would have to say in big letters on the front, though, an AI homage or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, they would have to disclose it.
That's the thing that was interesting about
Well, it would
McNeil.
be obvious if the novelist is dead.
in the play, it's kind of pretty savvy. He actually throws in King Lear. He's doing Rag. He's throwing in King Lear and Ozymandias and a bunch of different poems and things. And it says, "Now write me my Nobel speech." It's really great, I have to say.
There's like so much potential for this stuff that can be used for both good and bad, of course. But it's like, I mean, for instance, take AI, feed it all the Beatles albums, live performances, everything,
and then get new Beatles
about the band. Yeah, about their philosophy.
Why hasn't somebody done that?
And then have them write new Beatles music, right?
Benito, you're a musician. Could that happen? Would it be new Beatles?
That hasn't happened, and me personally, I wouldn't care about any of that music because it wasn't the Beatles. John Lennon didn't write that. Paul McCartney didn't write that. Some computer wrote that. I wouldn't give a crap.
But Benito, Benito's our producer.
I care about craft. I don't care as much about output as I much.
He likes the process. But there's also some heart.
Music, so.
There's a piece of John Lennon in every song, right? If an AI wrote it, would there be a piece of John Lennon? Would you know that it's not there? I don't know.
It would almost be like a theoretical possibility that this would be music he could kind of write. I don't. Granted, there would be people.
Enough.
Oh, that's not. Yeah, and it's not real. It's not 100% authentic. But if it's good, it doesn't matter. Like if it's a good song, people would listen to it. I mean, that's what pop music is. It doesn't matter. Pop music is all manufactured today, but it doesn't matter if the song is good and catchy, gets stuck.
Then you wouldn't need to pass it off as a Beatles song. If it's a good song, then you wouldn't need to pass it off as a Beatles song, right?
Did you ever see the movie, Danny Boyle's movie Yesterday, Benito?
Oh no.
Yes. Yeah.
I love this idea. The idea is this guy is a huge Beatles fan, and he gets clonked in the head. And when he wakes up, the Beatles never existed, except he knows all the Beatles songs. Mm-hmm. So he starts singing them as if he wrote them and becomes a massive star.
And he gets into a songwriting match with Ed Sheeran and wins it hands
Isn't
down.
that hysterical?
Just by remembering one
Because he writes
Beatles
Yesterday. Imagine, let me write a song. I got a song. Let me just write it. The best part of it is when he meets John Lennon, because Lennon never became the Beatles, right? So he had a happy life. He's an old man now. If you haven't seen it, it's an interesting, and I guess with AI, it might even be something the future brings. So to go back to the FTC thing, the reason this is an issue, and you work for Windows Central, Daniel. I mean,
this comes up all the time at Future. Yeah,
these publishing companies are suffering. They're dying. Anand just went out of business. iMore just went out of business this week. Breaks my heart. So when companies like Red Ventures, these private equity companies, come along and they start posting AI written reviews on their sites because it's link bait and it's cheap to make, and you can make hundreds and hundreds of link baity review articles. This really devalues our business.
Yeah, 100%. And it comes up all the time at Future, our parent company, whose position right now and for the foreseeable future is we don't use any AI generated content on the site.
They should make that. They should put that in a big banner.
Where actually a lot of us are arguing for that exact thing. Although part of it is sort of like the presumption is it's already you're not doing that, so it's kind of weird to be. It's sort of like showing up to a casino wearing a shirt that says "I'm not cheating." It's like wait, why are you wearing that shirt? Were you cheating?
But that's crazy that that sites like yours might eventually put up a banner like a disclosure just saying human made. That's amazing to me. It's
like so this comes up. Even if I want to do something AI generated, I'd have to run it up the chain and get all this permission. I can do it as explicitly saying this thing I'm about to show you is AI generated as an example. I could do that, but I can't do anything articles. Now, I think the irony here is that Google is going to be one of the companies that could potentially save this, right? It's because AI generated content can also be detected by AI. That's how a lot of this stuff works. OpenAI has said they have their own tool that can do this, that has like a 99.5% accuracy or something. I think it's going to be really imperative that social networks, search engines integrate this stuff into their back end. It doesn't mean it necessarily has to be removed, but it should all be flagged and alerted to people that you're looking at AI generate content.
Assuming that you can tell.
Yeah.
But you can't always tell.
No,
that's
and also
temptation.
Also,
Just sneak it
assuming
in.
we're talking about a final product, things like CoPilot are,
Right.
can I start that letter for you? Can I start that article for you? And then you take it from there.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah, so there's ways
Is
to
it? That's
kind of,
my question.
yeah, I think it is. I think there's ways to, if you're doing a review, there's definitely ways. It goes to this level of how can you prove you did the review? And one way you can prove you did a review is one, having photos, videos,
Your reporter's
real data
notebook.
that's unique.
Yeah.
Having real data, run real tests, show how
Real
you
notes.
do the test.
Yeah.
You know, there's like an idea, because that's kind of your issue right now. You know, up a couple of years ago, what websites would do is they would do like best TVs, best 4K TVs, and the site wouldn't have reviewed any of the TVs. What they would do then, though, is they would go to Best Buy, they'd go to Amazon, they would look at what other people are saying in their reviews.
Jeez, that's horrible.
And they would basically do a human summarization of that and put it into their buying.
It's as bad as AI, right?
Yeah, and that's what Google has now caught on to, is saying that, like, you know, now websites are getting penalized for doing that kind of content. So now it's all about proving how much that you actually did do this review. Like, how original is your content? The more original it is, the better you will do with Google. Versus AI generated content tends to be very superficial and won't provide, you know, images and video. Won't show, like, if I showed you a video with me on screen with a laptop and I'm talking about it, there's a pretty good chance that's real. Now you can get into the whole thing that, well, maybe that was AI generated too, but you know, this idea that I'm a real human being, that's going to be what's important here. But I think Google will be, it's in their interest to kind of solve this problem, because I think long-term it's going to blow back. So some of these companies may be waiting for now. And that's another reason why Future doesn't even touch this stuff, because they're paranoid that at some point Google will detect this and then will absolutely punish all those websites, which is what happened a couple of years ago. And
yeah, they changed their algorithm, and legitimate review sites were hurt as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who cares
so
about
they-
the FTC? We don't show up in search.
Google's much more significant than anything the FTC could do.
But
The
I
FT
do question whether Google would be able to detect this stuff, because maybe they could detect, let's say, perhaps they could detect stuff that's generated by Gemini, their own model. But could they detect
Right.
stuff generated by an open source model or OpenAI's model? Because there have been instances, I know it was a few months ago, there was, you know, you could Google a celebrity, like there was one instance with this Hawaiian singer named Israel Kamakawiwole, I think.
He's somewhere over the rainbow
and-
guy, yeah.
Yes, that guy, if you Googled him, the first picture that came up, it was a photograph, but it's actually not a photograph. It was an AI generated photograph of him. That was the top Google search result for this guy. And the same happened for, I think it was some sort of
Beethoven.
famous Dutch painter.
Beethoven.
Oh, was it Beethoven? Yeah. So I think, so Google's like, I don't know that it can get a grip on this, especially if the models get better, more realistic, the language is more human-like. I don't know. I think that
Some of it's going to
tough
be a
one for them.
Yeah, it's going to be a multi-part solution. Like part of it, like right now, Google supposedly weighs on this thing called EEAT, expertise. Forgot what the other one is. It's authority and trustworthiness. And it's this idea that, like, I've been doing this now for like 17 years. So like I have a very long reputation on Google that follows me around and all this, where I come across as more authentic versus if someone just wrote an article on even my site and did a review for the first time. They don't really have any history with Google, and by default, Google would probably downrank them compared to if I wrote something. And so there's ways of balancing these things off to detect authenticity. A site like Tom's Guide has been around for a very long time. So they have like a reputation that's been there for a while versus a new site that just popped out. That doesn't mean that like Tom's Guide couldn't be putting out fake content, of course, but I think there'll be multiple ways to detect this stuff. But yeah, it's always going to be a cat and mouse game. But I actually do believe like AI can be used to fight AI. Like I think that's going to be a thing, but it will be back and forth, right? There'll be moments where, no, we did fool the system. But I think companies would be really playing a dangerous game if they start to bet that they won't get caught, because we've seen what happens when Google does decide to change those algorithms, and it does decimate websites, and a lot of legitimate websites got decimated too. So it's a really interesting problem.
This is the image of Israel Kamakoa. I can never get his name. On the left, AI generated, right? You can kind of tell.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell. But still, the fact that that was the top Google image search result is kind of scary. He's, of course, no longer with us. But, so the FTC, this is a CBS quote from the FTC. Oh, no, I just closed that window. Let me pull that Salon article back up here. They're quoting the FTC's Ad Practices Director, Serena Viswanathan. We're all using them now to make decisions of whether to buy a product, these review sites or these reviews, where to stay on vacation. But unfortunately, with the rise in online reviews, we've seen that bad actors can manipulate or fake reviews to deceive customers for their own benefit. The FTC has seen a massive increase in online reviews in the last few years. So the new rule prevents secretly advertising for yourself, which is why I had to disclaim that I have a stake in Salt Hanks Pickle Company. Right, Denise? Denise told me that a long time ago. You can't secretly advertise for yourself while pretending to be an independent outlet or company.
Yes.
It bars, quote, the creation or operation of websites, organizations, or entities that purportedly provide independent reviews or opinions of products. This is a big problem in the VPN space. Search for a VPN review. A lot of the sites you go to are owned by the companies that make the product the site reviews.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It happens all the time. It is now illegal. And I guess, the FTC has limited enforcement capabilities and a lot of fish to fry, but it's good that it's illegal.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. And throwing fines out, as well as the potential of like search engines downgrading you, is a potential double whammy for sites, attempting to do this stuff. But we could go further. I mean, maybe one of those things at some point where authors and reviewers need to like somehow authenticate themselves, to be on the web and to get a kind of an approval kind of thing, where you just know you're verified, right? That was the whole verification thing with Twitter years ago that we all enjoyed, which was you knew that was the real person because at some point you had to show your ID to someone to verify it. That's still a valid way to get around this stuff, but then people get, squishy with the idea of like, well, how are you going to see my license? So I don't know.
And as you were pointing out, Daniel, Google essentially verifies you without giving you a blue check. We used to call that Google juice, right? That you would just, you had that influence with Google based on what you had published in the past.
It's always been easy to impersonate people online. I mean, it's only going to get easier, right? I've had people take my images and name and make fake. That's the real me because I got a blue check, right? But make fake. It's easy enough to take these images and make a fake account, and it's happened to me on Facebook.
But it's one of those things that as soon as you start to pull out that string a little bit, it's usually pretty easy. Like if you just start looking,
one would hope
person's fake. You would figure it out usually pretty quickly, but someone has to be looking. Right?
It also makes it difficult when I went back, because I'd left Facebook for years, and I thought, well, I ought to have a Facebook account just to see what's going on. So I made an account and invited some friends, and they said, is this you? Because you're not on Facebook. It also makes it harder for you to convince people this is really you. So, and then there's the case of the AI lawyer. The FTC sued. I'm a little sad about this because DoNotPay is really cool. Mm-hmm. DoNotPay was created to get you out of parking tickets, right, Denise?
Yeah. And for anybody interested, you can go back and see an interview on This Week in Law with the founder, episode 352.
Was he an attorney?
I want to say yes. I don't remember off the top of my head.
But he noticed that you could, if you fought a parking ticket, you could pretty much always get out of it kind of automatically. Yeah.
His name's Josh Browder. And he'd made this really cool site. But, not just the FTC, but every state bar is really, really trigger happy and sensitive on this issue of the unauthorized practice of law. And you have to tread that line carefully. And
so he started DoNotPay, not really to practice law, but to get you out of parking tickets. That probably was okay. But then he got ambitious And he expanded to cover over 200 other areas of law: breach of contract, restraining orders, insurance claims, divorce settlements. But he never acknowledged that these services were provided without lawyer oversight.
Right.
It's a pure robo-lawyer.
Yeah.
Robo something. Anyway, the FTC said that DoNotPay began charging subscribers $36 every 2 months while making false claims in ads to drive up subscriptions. Deceptive ads included a prominently featured quote purportedly from the LA Times that hyped up the service by saying, quote, "What this robot lawyer can do is astonishingly similar, if not more, to what human lawyers do." The quote was actually from a high schooler's opinion piece in the Los Angeles Times High School Insider website, which is a user-generated content platform for young people. I mean, I guess that's the LA Times.
No, it's not.
No? Okay.
Not at all.
All right. Also, beyond the deceptive ads, I'm reading from the Ars Technica piece by Ashley Belanger. The service was essentially just a chatbot trained to recognize relationships between words. Wait a minute. That sounds a little bit like ChatGPT.
They used ChatGPT. They were using openAI's model for their stuff. Yeah.
None of the services technologies, FTC said, has been trained on a comprehensive and current corpus of federal and state law regulations and judicial decisions. Well, is that the only mistake they made? Would it be okay to use an AI lawyer if it were properly trained?
Someone's gonna do it.
The FTC said the DoNotPay employees have not tested the quality and accuracy of legal documents and advice generated. They have not employed attorneys. They've not retained attorneys, let alone attorneys with relevant legal expertise to test the quality and accuracy of the features. Anyway, he settled $193,000. So it's kind of a tiny little settlement.
It's a lot if you're Josh Browder.
Yeah.
Oh, but actually, if you look at the top comment of that article that you're reading, Leo, and that sort of makes a really good point there. They say, okay, so this company has 200,000 subscribers. They're paying $36 every 2 months. That means they're paying $216 a year, which means the company is making an estimated $43 million in revenue a year. So that fine ad is basically half. It's tiny. It's 0.5% of their revenue.
Wow.
It's nothing for them. It's a cost of doing
Probably what the
business.
FTC was more going after was like knock it off, right? And I'm sure they got that.
Act as a deterrent to others, which I think is healthy. It's definitely an issue. I mean, this guy, Josh Browder, for years, and I've written about him before, even back when I was at Forbes, he's one of these guys that's just really good at selling the future. Very, very good at it. And has that tendency to fudge the truth a little bit, maybe, with the marketing. I remember when I interviewed him once, he was saying that, our next thing is we're going to invent a robo-lawyer that can talk to you through your AirPods when you're in court, and it will just whisper you instructions so you know what to say to defend yourself.
Wasn't he? I believe that they stopped that.
Yes.
They nipped that one in the bud.
But it was coming. It was the future.
He was prevented. He was going to go to jail for bringing
can't do that.
An AI lawyer into a courtroom.
AirPods.
There's another.
I have, though. What I do is I just call Denise and I have her in my AirPods.
To your point, there was another company, and this was The Guest on Twill with Josh Browder. It was founded by Andrew Arruda, and it was called Ross Intelligence. And they were basically sued out of existence by, I forget who sued them. It was the database that runs Westlaw. So that is a huge repository of legal opinions statutes. Basically, what the FTC was calling out: hey, if you trained something on a huge composite of actual legal data, then you might have something legitimate to talk about. And that's what Ross was trying to do. But copyright considerations basically sued them out
Westlaw
of existence.
won that one.
Yeah.
But this is kind of a necessary area that I think the FTC is getting into, which has been an issue for a number of years, which is companies kind of riding on the coattails of AI hype to get higher valuations and to embellish the capabilities of whatever product they're selling by saying that it's AI. This is not to diminish what Josh Browder's product can do and has done, and I've seen that he has DoNotPay has helped a lot of people get out of parking tickets. But from what I've read, like broadly, the FTC is trying to crack down on businesses that are just really egregiously overhyping the use of AI and deceiving customers and investors too. And it's been a problem for years. This is not a recent thing.
They have something called Operation AI Comply, which
that's the one, yes.
Yeah, Lena Khan says will monitor companies' attempts to, quote, lure consumers into bogus schemes or use AI tools to turbocharge deception. God bless Lena Khan. I'm glad that she's paying attention to this because, typically you'd say 10 years later, the government say, oh, we should do something about this. But she's pretty smart. She said using AI tools to trick, mislead, or defraud people is illegal. The FTC's enforcement actions make it clear there is no AI exemption from the laws on the books. By cracking down on unfair or deceptive practices in these markets, FTC is ensuring that honest businesses and innovators can get a fair shot. Bravo.
I think it also points to the risk of, I'm glad she's there and doing this kind of thing, but imagine if someone from the AI industry became the FTC chair, which we know how lobbying works in Washington and how people get.
That's why your vote counts, folks.
Yeah. You get someone in there who's just like, well, maybe this AI stuff isn't so bad. I'll let a few companies cheat,
or God forbid, private equity.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because I'm tempted to think that's what happened with DoNotPay. I have no basis for saying that. I don't know how they're funded or who they've partnered with, but
somebody got greedy. That's what happened. We don't know who, but somebody got greedy. Let's take a little break. We will have more, actually, a few more minutes with our great panel. Parmi Olsen is here, the author of a brand new book, Supremacy. I hope you'll come back when you don't have a book to flog. I love having you on the show. You're fantastic.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
I'd love to come back.
Okay. We just used the book as a hook. Go get it. It's great. If you want to know how we got to where we are today, and you want to know about more importantly, I think it's important to understand the personalities, people like Sam Altman and Demis Hassabis, the people behind it. Gives you a little bit more insight into what's going on and what their motivations are. Brand new, just came out from St. Martin's Press. Also, wonderful journalist, editor-in-chief of Windows Central. It's always great to have Daniel Rubino on. And Denise Howell, attorney at law. Tell me about your new podcast, said Hearsay Culture.
Well, I co-host a show with Dave Levine, who's a professor at Elon University. And that is called R&D with D&D.
I like the name.
So we do a two on one interview kind of format on all things sort of tech, culture, society. We just try and dig deep and help people have a better understanding of things. And then my own show is called Uneven Distribution, which is what you were on, Leo. And for everyone listening, I definitely encourage you to check out my episode with Leo because we had great fun and I learned a lot. And I know you would too. And my current episode is with a woman named Marina Gerner. She's a journalist who's done a ton of research on women's healthcare and startups.
Thank you so much for joining.
Sorry, I started playing it. Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah.
And she has a book out now called The Vagina Business that just came out this month. Yes, it's so good. It's all about startups, struggling against the traditional VC infrastructure and biases trying to serve women's healthcare
interesting.
ideas and needs.
I want to order it just for the name alone, but then you described it, and now I definitely want to order this book.
Oh, and you have to order it for the graphic on the front too, which shows a sort of diamond shape with a USB cable running down the middle of it. Yeah.
Lisa, my wife is always complaining about how medical care is geared around men. And they're often, for instance, she needs a knee replacement, but all the knees are for men.
Yeah.
And then they just, we'll give you a small man's knee. No, No, that's just not right.
Marina did just hundreds of hours of research for this book, and you're going to learn so much about a lot of really great startups that are out there that you probably never would have heard of.
What is the economic? What is the economic force that's doing that? Because I mean, women have always been 51% of the population, and yet ignored for so long in medicine and many other businesses.
Well, I forget the exact quote, but one of the people she interviewed, a VC for the book, she was trying to say, why don't you fund more of these companies? And he said, I don't want to be thinking about vaginas with my morning coffee.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
It was just that bad. So
that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently 2.1% of venture capital dollars go to companies founded by women. 2.1%.
Oof.
And the simple answer is the patriarchy, right?
Yeah. To the patriarchy.
VC is always the worst. It always comes back to that.
That's the real.
That's the worst.
If you want to know what people really are all about, find out where they put their money, because that tells you everything. Yep. Well, it's great to have you, Denise. Hearsayculture.com. That sounds like an episode well worth listening to. I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Our show today brought to you by Veeam. Now, this is a business that everybody ought to know about it. I don't understand. You hear it all the time. Ransomware attacks and companies paying millions of dollars to bad guys to get their data back. Your data is everything in your business. Without your data, your customers' trust turns to digital dust. That's why Veeam's data protection and ransomware recovery ensures that you can secure and restore your enterprise data wherever and whenever you need it. Everyone needs this. No, stop paying ransomware, folks. That's crazy. Veeam is trusted by over 77% of the Fortune 500 to keep their businesses running when digital disruptions like ransomware strike. Now, they're having a big event October 1st. It's open to all of you. It's virtual. The 2024 Veeam On Data Resilience Summit. And I think you're going to want to attend to this. A world without data is one that grinds to a halt. But data resilient organizations don't let the threats of cyber attacks or disruptions define them. They put the plan, the expertise, and the solutions in place ahead of time so their businesses will keep running no matter what. That's why you want to find out about this. Join the virtual Veeam On Data Resilience Summit. You'll learn about the industry's leading playbook to keep your data safe, protected, and available. Keynote-worthy news about Veeam's latest product updates, how to take full control over where and how your data is stored, and best practices from data resilience experts who are leading the way. You've got to do this. Go to Veeam, VEEAM.com, VEEAM.com. Register, join it. It's free. It's online. There's no reason to miss the Veeam On Data Resilience Summit coming up October 1st. Veeam.com. And if you don't do this, you got to be nuts. I mean, it's obvious. Veeam.com. Thank you, Veeam, for your support.
Hey, can I follow up on something we were just talking about? Because literally, I'm not making this up. I went to go buy Henry Laporte's cookbook while you were reading the ad copy.
Thank you.
And
it's called Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation.
Yes.
And it's 40% off at Target and Walmart right now. So go buy it.
It is also 40% off at Amazon, or that's what it's telling me.
You bet. Yeah. You bet. Yep.
And when I launched Amazon on Firefox, a little beta window popped up from Firefox that's called Review Checker.
Oh.
Try our trusted guide to product reviews.
Oh.
See how reliable product reviews are on Amazon before you buy. Review Checker, an experimental feature from Firefox, is built into the browser.
Good for them.
It works on Walmart and Best Buy too. Using the power of FakeSpot by Mozilla, we help you avoid biased and inauthentic reviews. Our AI model is always improving to protect you as you shop. So they're fighting fire with fire. They're using AI to detect fake.
I didn't know. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know Firefox, I guess the Mozilla Foundation owns FakeSpot, because FakeSpot's been around for a while, and you could just install the extension. You can install the extension on any browser. But it's kind of cool they're building it right into Firefox too, because you have to go out and find it now, right? And
it just shows you how bad the fake review situation is.
Oh, yeah.
That you need a plugin in your browser to tell you, no, that one's fake.
It does two things now. Now it looks at both the reviews on the site from the people to, determine how many of those reviews are real and fake. And then it also now rates the buyer too, where you're buying from. Because a lot of times on Amazon, you're not getting it from Amazon. You're kind of getting it through service through Amazon, through another company. And so it'll also review that to tell them if they're like a scam or they have issues and stuff like that. So
it's Firefox 119, version 119 introduces Review Checker. That's very good.
And some of these browser companies like Firefox and Brave has done a lot of really interesting things for privacy as well, building in Tor browser into theirs and ad blockers and stuff.
You know why I support Firefox? Because Brave, along with Arc, which I'm using right now, Edge, they're all Chrome-based. They're all Chromium browsers. And I just feel like there is a real risk to a monoculture in anything, whether it's bananas or browsers. And it's good to have another. There's really only two engines now. There's Chromium and Apple's Safari engine. So it's good. Firefox is dwindling, but let's support them because we need that. We need that third engine, I think, that third way of doing things. And they're doing great stuff. I'm a big fan. Firefox Review Checker. Oh, and let's not forget Salt Hank, a 5-napkin situation. Esquire magazine, in a real review, said it was the best cookbook of 2024 so far.
Wow.
So it's beautiful. It's actually a beautiful picture book as much as a cookbook. You're just going to look at all the pictures and go, I'm hungry now. And it's my son, and I'm so proud of him.
That's such a great title.
Isn't it? It's his life. We went to visit my dad, who's in the nursing home. He's 92 now, 91. And my dad wrote a book when I was a kid. I wrote a book when Henry was a kid. And now Henry has written a book. So I said, sign it to your dad. Say from the third generation of authors. Isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
I have my book and my dad's books on my shelf over here, and I'm going to add Hank's.
Perfect.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't you like that, Parmy, if you have created a kind of a generational thing of
no pressure
authors?
On my daughter.
It's like, get to writing and don't use AI. By the way, good news, as long as we're talking about California law, they have just put a law into practice. Actually, it's going to be a few years probably before it's real, that requires one-click subscription cancellation. It should be as easy to cancel as it is to subscribe. Now, the law passed the assembly. I don't know if the governor has signed it yet. Yeah, it takes effect January of next year. And it would cover purchases and contracts entered into from the following July. So I think the FTC is all. I know Lena Khan's been working on this as well. But you know what? California, huge economy. As California goes in cases like this, so goes the nation. That's good. Yeah. That's a good law. It should be as easy to cancel because they hide it, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you click to sign up, but then to cancel, they're like, you have to call us.
Absolutely.
It's just like that. They know a lot of people, like even myself, will go, I'll do it tomorrow. Or it's like 8:00 at night. Like they're not going to be open, right?
Yeah.
They do that all on purpose.
Oh, it's you sign up online and they say, well, if you want to cancel, you're going to have to call us and we're going to talk you out of it and blah, 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 blah. Right. Speaking of, I might as well do the government legal action segment. The DOJ is suing Visa, the big credit card company, saying they tried to smother competitors like Square. They filed an antitrust lawsuit saying that they have an illegal monopoly over debit network markets and has attempted to unlawfully crush competitors, including PayPal and Square. Multi-year investigation. Since 2021, the DOJ has been investigating that.
Right. I mean, think about it. Have you ever had a non-Visa debit card?
Yeah.
I've had a MasterCard debit card.
You have?
Yeah.
Through your bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
USAA, but they changed to Visa a couple of years ago. They were MasterCard.
Wonder why.
How do they do that? What do they get? Offer them incentives?
They
With
must.
scale, you can offer better packages and deals. And
For years, I thought MasterCard and Visa were like the same, parallel. There was Discover, which nobody used, MasterCard and Visa, and then there's American Express, which nobody used because the merchants don't like it because they take a bigger cut. Visa makes more, according to The Verge, makes more than $7 billion a year in payment processing fees alone. I'm not talking about interest on your credit card, just the fees. 60% of debit transactions in the U.S. run on Visa's network. And it's
why some places will, I've seen it recently where some places will offer a lower price for cash because
that's right.
Because when you use a Visa or debit card, whatever, they get charged to use that network.
Right.
But if you paid in cash, it could be cheaper. So they end up passing that. So they end up charging you more for the product to make up for it. So that's what the big thing here is, that they're saying it's not just that it affects all these retailers, but everybody ends up paying more money for all these services and goods because of this, because the cost gets passed on to the consumer.
According to the complaint, Visa entered into paid agreements with potential competitors as part of an effort to fend off competition from newer entrants. The DOJ said this has allowed Visa to build, quote, an enormous moat around its business. When Square launched Square Cash in 2013, the Cash app, right? Visa was so worried that it would threaten their payment volume. They entered into a series of contracts to discourage Square from competing aggressively against Visa. Or as a Visa executive said, and I guess this is in the emails or something in Discovery, quote, we've got Square on a short leash.
Wow.
Right. And they considered Apple an existential threat.
Oh, yeah. I use Apple Pay for everything, right?
Doesn't sound monopolistic at all.
No. And now we've got PayPal out there with the Will Ferrell ads trying to encourage you
Venmo and PayPal. Oh, yeah. Will Ferrell's dancing around saying use PayPal. I don't even know how you would use PayPal to pay for something.
Apparently the way you would use
Did you put it on
Venmo
your watch?
or no, you'd have to. I'm
You
sure
could do
it
it
would
Venmo
be-
is Venmo is PayPal. That's what I'm
Right.
puzzled by the whole thing.
But
I never
PayPal,
used
you can
PayPal
also-
to pay.
Yeah, you
for
can send
anything.
direct cash to people in PayPal too. It's basically the same.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody wants to use PayPal. I'm sorry.
I like it on websites, where it's a pay option, because you have to fill out your own credit card.
Yeah, but then it's just a credit card. I mean, because I don't want to log into PayPal and then I have to do the authenticate. It just takes forever.
I actually use PayPal for all of my online purchases.
You do, Benito? Why?
when they offer it, because it's one click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
Once you're logged in,
set it up to pay from multiple sources.
Right.
Yeah. So it is easy.
I mean, it's eBay's primary choice for purchases.
But it'd be nice if this leads to lower fees, right? Isn't that for consumers? That's the hopeful end game of the lawsuit.
Oh, Apple Pay is a MasterCard. Huh. Never mind. I do have a MasterCard. It's my Apple Pay.
But that's not a debit card.
It comes right out of my bank.
Okay.
Oh no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. You're right. It's not. It's a charge card, and then a month later it comes out of my bank.
Right.
I don't know. I think everything's free. I just tap my watch and I just take. It doesn't feel like I'm paying for anything. It's amazing. I love it. Hey, here's some really good news from NIST, N-I-S-T. The National Institute of Standards and Technology. Somebody way back when NIST was writing password recommendations, somebody, I won't name his name, we do know his name, wrote that, passwords should be changed every 6 months. Just made it up because there's no real reason for that. Nevertheless, how many of you does your work demand that your password be changed every few months?
Yes.
You got to come up with a new password.
Annoying.
So annoying. The guy who wrote that recommendation later recanted and said, I'm sorry. I should never have written that.
3 months.
It's wrong. Well, last week, NIST released the second public draft of its digital identity guidelines, which, by the way, runs to 35,000 words. But the section devoted to passwords finally says The new rules bar the requirement that end users periodically change their passwords. This requirement came into being decades ago when password security was poorly understood. Since then, most services require stronger passwords. They're random. People use password managers, et cetera, et cetera. The real problem with changing your password, Parmi, you can vouch for this. Is it Bloomberg that make you change your password more than every 3 months?
I don't know if it's every 3 months. It might be every 3 months or every 6 months. I just had to change it last week. Yeah. It was so annoying.
So what do? You take the old password and you add something to it, or you you don't come up with a better password in many cases. It's just a bad idea.
But isn't also the possible impact that people just choose weaker passwords as a result?
So they can remember it.
So they can remember them. And then that defeats the whole purpose of
There's another thing that they wrote into. Another requirement that often does more harm than good is the required use of certain characters. You've seen it. You got to have one number, one special character, one upper and lowercase. That actually weakens your password. Dan Guden's writing about this in Ars Technica. Dan's a very good security guy. He knows about this stuff. That weakens your password. The new NIST guidelines say verifiers shall not impose composition rules for passwords. And they shall not require users to change passwords periodically. They can force a change if there's evidence of compromise, of course. That's sensible.
Why did they say shall and not should? It's just really odd.
Denise
Sounds
Howell
like
knows
medieval
why.
or something.
Well, and again, these are just guidelines, right? Nobody has to follow these.
Yeah, shall implies like shall is
like you will.
You will. Shall not. They're trying to make it stronger, even though it's just guidelines, right?
Yeah.
In previous versions of the guidelines, actually, it's good you asked this question, Parmi. You're a good journalist. In previous versions of the guidelines, some of the rules used words should not, which means the practice is not recommended as a best practice. Shall not, by contrast, means the practice must be barred for an organization to be in compliance. So they do, I guess, have some sort of compliance standard. They don't have the
So this is great. So now I can send an email to my IT
Yes, send them this article.
Without this article and these guidelines, they would just it would be like throwing a message into the abyss. They wouldn't listen to me. But now they will because they've said shall in the guidelines. So they should do it.
But Parmi, should you? I'm guessing you already bugged them. Right?
She shall.
It drives me crazy. The last time I worked for a big company was iHeartMedia, and they required this every few months, and it drives me crazy because I only logged into my account once every 6 months or so. Every time I had to make a new password. It's like, I just barely got this one. Jeez.
Bigger question is now, can parents use should and shall for their kids in terms of rules?
Thou shalt
It's just changing the culture.
But
this is an important distinction.
Yeah. I remember from school, there shall is stronger than should or would or should.
It just sounds like something people would say on Downton Abbey, like, shall we retire for a cigar?
Shall we?
Yeah, you shall.
Shall we wrap things up with a final commercial, shall we? And then maybe we'll find something funny to talk about, a little amuse-bouche to conclude this episode. Shall we?
You got to say indeed at the end.
Indeed. Indeed we shall.
And you have to say it like Maggie Smith.
Oh, absolutely.
Passed away this week at the age of 89. One of the great actresses.
You're finding out now.
She was so good in Downton Abbey as the salty, what was she, great aunt?
The dowager. The dowager.
Lady Grantham. No,
Lady Grantham.
Duchess. No, she was the Archduchess. I don't remember.
Dowager Countess?
Yeah.
Something. What does dowager mean? It means you never got married, right?
No, it means
You're a parent of the king.
Someone
parent of the king.
So Lady Grantham is the Duke's wife.
Yes.
The dowager used to be Lady Grantham.
She's the former Lady Grantham.
Right.
Just like the Dowager Queen Elizabeth was Elizabeth's mother. Okay.
Yes.
We have learned so much about the English language on today's episode. Final thought here. This episode of This Week in Tech brought to you by Flashpoint. Now, for Security leaders, 2024 has been a year like no other. Cyber threats and physical security concerns have continued to increase. Now you've got geopolitical instability. You know, the world is a crazy place, and every new incident adds a new layer of risk and uncertainty. Let's talk numbers. Last year, this is terrifying. There was a staggering 84% rise in ransomware attacks, a 34% jump in data breaches, and of course, the result, trillions of dollars in financial losses and threats to safety worldwide. Now, if you're a government, if you're a world leader, you've got intelligence people who bring you this information, who keep you up to date, who let you know ahead of time what's going on. What do you do in business? You need Flashpoint. Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions that will keep their people and assets safe. How? By combining cutting-edge technology with the expertise of world-class analyst teams. Some of the best people in the business work for Flashpoint. And with Ignite, which is Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to critical data, finished intelligence, alerts, and analytics all in one place. Some of the Flashpoint customers avoid $500 million in fraud loss annually, a 482% ROI in 6 months. Probably why Flashpoint earned Frost & Sullivan's 2024 Global Product Leadership Award for unrivaled threat data and intelligence. You need this information. As an SVP of cyber operations at I won't name it, but a large U.S. financial institution said, quote, Flashpoint saves us over $80 million in fraud losses every year. Their proactive approach and sharp insights are crucial in keeping our financial institutions secure. They're not just a solution, they're a strategic partner helping us stay ahead of cyber threats. No wonder Flashpoint is trusted by both mission-critical businesses and, yes, governments worldwide. You need this information. You need this intelligence. To access the industry's best threat data and intelligence, visit flashpoint.io today. Otherwise, you're just working in the dark. Flashpoint.io. I talked to these guys, and I was kind of blown away. I did not even realize, shows my ignorance, that this kind of private intelligence exists. And if you're a business, you need it. You desperately need it. All right, I've got a few extra stories from our great panelists, Denise Howell. Some mad genius put ChatGPT into a TI-84 graphing calculator. I know you know about this because of Tyler, right? You had to buy him this calculator, didn't you? When he took the SATs or whatever.
Long ago, yes. And
yes.
He's a business major in college, so he
still uses it.
Uses graphing calculators, yes.
We bought these for our kids, many of them, because they kept losing them.
Yeah.
Imagine, though, adding ChatGPT, because they allow these in testing.
Right. So the reason I actually threw this in is in our regulatory section, one more law that California just enacted is the one that says California schools must restrict phones, like the LA Unified School District is already doing. And all I can think about is, okay, so how's this cat and mouse going to go? And that's why I asked about Rabbit and whether it was a phone or friend not imaginary or, whatever. What are kids going to use that's not a phone that they're going to get around this law? It's going to be something. I just don't know what it is.
This is the video describing how he put ChatGPT into this graphing calculator.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he was able to access ChatGPT through the calculator, basically.
Apparently, he's playing Tetris on it as well.
Right. And when you read his sort of goals in doing this, job one was get the TI-84 banned from the SAT.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's this is a whole story of how TI basically made so much money by getting these the lock-in on these, right?
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
God bless him. He's doing the Lord's work, putting ChatGPT on a TI-84 graphing calculator. That is wild. Let's see. What else you put in here? The final rule on use of... we did that one on the use of consumer reviews. 23andMe. So this week, the entire board quit at 23andMe. This is the Ann Wojcicki's company that I was really excited about. I think they were even an advertiser for a while. You spit into a tube, and then they would do some genetic analysis. It turned out that the genetic analysis they were doing was kind of a little, they were doing statistical matching between this genome and the questionnaires they sent people and so forth. It's gotten better over time. There are other maybe better genome. In fact, I did one recently, much more expensive, where they sequence the entire genome. But it does raise the issue: who has control of the spit vials? 23andMe has been talking about going public. They just settled a data breach lawsuit for $30 million. And there really is some question about their financial future. And if 23andMe does go out of business or go public, who gets the spit?
I think it's also just interesting that in hindsight, setting up a company where you charge people one time for one thing and there's no reason for them ever to come back and pay for it again, it's not a really good long-term business model.
Not a good model.
Yeah, that was the problem from the start. They'd never figured out any kind of subscription model or reason for people to keep spending money.
Yeah.
Also, I felt like 23andMe was very arbitrary in what they're telling you, because like, how far back do you want to go?
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, we're all from the same place.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just such a cautionary tale whenever you're giving any kind of sensitive data to a private company. Just know that, this is a temporary relationship between you and that company, and private equity exists. And they're bound to gobble your company up at some point.
I'm not too familiar with 23andMe, but just like reading the reports on it, it really strikes me. This is just another example of the whole culture of the vision, the founder knows best in Silicon Valley, and that's why founders of tech companies like Mark Zuckerberg have more than 50% voting control of Meta, and the Google founders had a lot of control of the company. Is this prevailing belief that the founder has a long-term vision and should be allowed to see that vision through. And usually investors will get behind them, but in this case, not. And it was interesting to read in the report that Ann Wojcicki still has some kind of, she says, we have to stay the course. It's going to be difficult, but we can make this work. But it's really unclear what her strategy is.
I hope she has. And, her sister recently passed. She was Susan Wojcicki's former CEO of YouTube. Their mom, Esther Wojcicki, rented the family garage to a couple of Stanford graduate students named Sergey Brin and Larry Page. And in fact, that's how Susan Wojcicki became an early employee at Google. So they're smart people. I would hope that Ann Wojcicki would have some integrity, and if it looked like the company was going to go under, not sell the spit. Do not sell the spit. Throw it out. But you can see, maybe that the value of the company is the fact that they hold all these.
Right. Louis Columbus has an interesting article at VentureBeat where he's basically just reporting on what's going on here, but he ends it with 5 strategies where to start to take this forward. And whether these are aimed at 23andMe or at whoever acquires this company or its assets, it's spit. But all 5 are very security and privacy focused. So he seems to be saying that's where they dropped the ball, is figure out first how to keep this data secure, and then I guess get to the problem of how you're going to charge them more than one time.
Yeah. I had a guy named, you can show that, George Church-on, who's considered by many the father of genomics. He started a company called Nebula Genomics. Same thing. I think I sent him spit, But they, unlike 23andMe, they actually give you, and you can download your entire genome. It's terabytes. They decode 100% of your DNA, which 23andMe does not do. And they say we guarantee your privacy, but I'm such a sucker. I just, fine. I sent them my spit. Somebody pointed out to me, it's not just you, Leo, it's your kids, because they share your genome. So you might be revealing something about your children.
That would be me. I pointed that out to you.
Was it you? Thank you.
Yes.
See, again, I should listen to my online attorney. So
it's your children, it's your cousins,
Nebula. So 23andMe does what's called genotyping. Same thing with Ancestry DNA, and it's just a small fraction of your DNA. These guys decode 100% of the DNA, which is why it's so expensive. They do a huge job on this. And Church made a really good argument. By the way, he's also the guy who wants to bring back woolly mammoths to save the climate. So if you're interested, search George Church woolly mammoths. It's fascinating, the Woolly Mammoth Project. But his point, he said, everybody should do this before they get married, for instance, to make sure that you and your prospective spouse aren't going to propagate some genetic flaw to your kids. So you at least have the knowledge that there's that risk. We are kind of wandering blithely into parenthood without a lot of information that we can today get. I didn't learn anything particular from doing the Nebula thing, but
yeah, again, I'd just do it medically. If you're concerned about propagating have your doctor run that test through a lab.
Will doctors offer that?
They do when you're pregnant, that's for sure.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For things like sickle cell and yeah. That makes
Leo,
sense.
just get pregnant.
Let's see. What else is going on? Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up? I know what is it? It's late. It's midnight in the UK.
Don't
almost
ask.
1 a.m. I'm so sorry, but thank you.
Oh,
and is your
okay.
daughter
I've
going to
had
come
tea.
back to her bedroom, or is she going to sleep on the couch tonight?
Once she's out, she's out.
Oh, that's good.
She will sleep right. She's fine on the couch.
Please, Parmi, thank your wonderful daughter for letting you have her room. It's the only room you could do a podcast from. Is that it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you sound
I've got
great.
Two other kids, and yeah.
It's great. It's wonderful. The book Supremacy is out now from St. Martin's Press. Highly recommended. It's really engrossing, the story. And for somebody like me who has to cover AI, it really helps to kind of understand the personalities and their goals and all of that. Very nicely done. Thank you for being on the show. Supremacy is in bookstores now. You'll see Parmi's writing at Bloomberg Opinion as well and other places. Former Wall Street Journal reporter. Thank you for being here, Parmi. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. You can go to bed now. I'm sorry to keep you up so late. Daniel Rubino, always a pleasure to have you on, editor-in-chief at Windows Central. Keeping up with Microsoft these days is a full-time job. Thank you for doing it. Anything you'd like to plug coming up?
I'm probably doing a podcast this week because we expect some big news from Microsoft. So
you said that several times. Can you give us a hint of any kind? New hardware, new software, 24H2, anything you want to talk
related
about?
To 24H2, yeah. Even some of the topics we touched upon here, we've kind of alluded to. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. It's cool stuff.
Also, Prime Day coverage, right? We got Prime Day 2 coming up. That's got to be the thing you dread the most.
Have we always had
we all hate
two?
it.
I always thought there
No.
was
This is days. It's the second one now. That they do.
Yeah. You can't go to Amazon without getting a big banner saying, a week from Tuesday.
Yep. And now it's funny, too, because Walmart and Best Buy all do counter programming. I mean, it's good for consumers, I guess, but it's also this weird thing of feels like you entrapping people to go buy things.
I agree.
But
great article.
There's a lot of cool tech out there to buy. So
great article on the front page of Windows Central about Sam Altman, podcasting bro.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure, Daniel, having you on. Thank you.
Okay.
And Denise Howell, thank you so much. We appreciate your being here. Denise is at hearsayculture.com. That's where her two podcasts are, including the one that I was a part of. And anything else you would like to plug? That the most recent interview sounds very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Give that a listen. DeniseHowell.info is my main website.
Nice.
I'm D Howell most places online.
Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Lisa left her water-based curling iron on the boat. We're very sad.
No.
We have to buy another one. Denise, among all of her other things, gives us hair care tips. So she takes no responsibility for my hair, however. That's all my fault. I know. I need a haircut. My barber moved.
I'm one of those people that were I not using something like a steam-powered straightening iron, my hair would look like Rosanna.
Yeah, same with Lisa. She's got very big curly hair.
Yeah.
She loves that thing.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Is it from Dyson? Who made it?
No, it's L'Oreal.
L'Oreal, that's right.
Yep, it's called a Steam Pod.
Okay, so.
Yes.
Oh, cool. I've got the Dyson Airwrap. It's very good.
Yeah.
I
have Airwrap envy. Haven't tried it yet.
Oh man, you got to try it.
I will.
See, we got everything on this show, coiffure tips included.
Hey, it's their technology.
No, absolutely. It's the latest stuff. We do Twit every Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. Sunday evening. That's Pacific time, 5 to 8 Eastern time. And for those of you in the UK, 2100 UTC. I'm so sorry. late. You can watch us do it live on 7 different platforms: YouTube, Twitch, Kick, X.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, and for our club members, right there in the Discord. If you're not a club member, first of all, a big thank you to our club members for making all of the shows we do possible. And if you're not a club member, I'd love to invite you to join. We keep the price low, $7 a month. It's nothing. You get ad-free versions of all the shows. We don't need to show you ads because you're already a club member. You get access to the Club Twit Discord, special programming we only do in the Discord. For instance, if you missed my photo review with Chris Marquardt, we talked about photography news on Friday. That is available to club members in the Twit Plus feed. Lots more stuff like that. But the best reason to do it is because it keeps us going. We don't do the fake reviews. We don't do the link bait. None of that stuff. We try to give you great content with high integrity, the best information, and I think it's worth $7 a month. If you agree, twit.tv/clubtwit, and thank you. I really appreciate it. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available at our website, twit.tv. There is a YouTube channel dedicated to the video. In fact, you'll find the link there at twit.tv. But the best way to get all of our shows is subscribe in your favorite podcast client. You can subscribe to audio or video, and that way you'll have it if you subscribe now every Monday morning for your beginning of your weekly commute. If you actually commute. I just go upstairs. My commute's very short. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks especially to our great panel, Denise Howell and Parmi Olson. Great to have you, Daniel Rubino. Thanks to all of you. Next episode 1000. But as I have said now, for 999 episodes for 20 years, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
Amazing.
Doing the Twit.